gives you an answer to Flamewaker, gives you an answer to the Sorcerer's Apprentice. So that is still a class that can contest with this. That being said, apparently we're going into game one, and Complexity opening up with the Aggro Warrior. Of course, Patches in the opening hand here, as this wouldn't be a real match if that wasn't the case.
Yep, that's exactly. Just shows how much they haven't prepared. No, sure. Patches
Zero
always
prep
in that
here,
opening.
Complexity.
Yeah, what are you doing, Mr.Yagut? You've got JJ and Crane shouting at you for drawing Patches. That's just not how you want to start your day.
Okay, so Neirea is opening up with, on the other side of the table, Anything Can Happen Paladin, which, frankly, that deck has been, in tournament scenes, performing ridiculously well.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised, because it's got that inevitability that a lot of decks don't have right now. Things like the Reno decks just win by not losing, if you like. Whereas the Paladin deck is going to beat you if you let it tick away. I know that Mage solved that for a while by going for the Alex Straza package. But yeah. I feel that anything, especially in a format where you can ban out the aggro decks, is actually kind of really powerful. But they have run straight into the Pirates here, of course.
I mean, it is a 1-1 that is not going to be stopped for now. As you can see here, Complexity's got the option of opening up with the coin South Sea Captain if they want to. Maybe worth considering over playing a weapon. Depends if you think you're going to keep Patches. Otherwise, there could definitely be an argument in favor of Fiery War Axe, kill the 1-1 for whatever reason, which is really, it feels miserable, and keep going. What do you think about just the South Sea Captain or Frothing Berserker trade?
So the Frothing Berserker thing's interesting, obviously, because you make the 4/4, but you don't end up with a Pirate, which means your Captain and your Corsair are not quite so good. Feel like you want to get the Pirate down. Do you think that your next minion lives? If so, do you want to try and run all the way with the Frothing? It's a difficult decision, and they've basically got 4 3-drops in their hand here as well, because Upgrade and the War Axe kind of is a 3-drop in its own right.
Right. One of the things, too, is that if you play the Frothing and you end up running into Aldor Peacekeeper, at least you have the answer in the form of the Axe, so I like that line of play. You also one turn before True Silver Champion, which lets you keep the Frothing alive more often than not. That's got to play a big role in Complexity's decision here to go for the Frothing instead, as it's only really weak to Aldor or True Silver Champion one turn from now.
Speak to me.
Oh, this is going to work out really nicely for Complexity here. They're going to limit the draws from the Acolyte to just 1 card, and they're going to end up with an almost out of control Frothing, and they're going to fix most of their curve up as well here.
Yeah, now there's the question of course, the True Silver Champion, because once you play Fiery War Axe to kill the 1/3 and you go face with the Frothing, if that's something you want to do, then you find yourself in a spot where suddenly Frothing dies to True Silver, and your tempo on the follow-up is really bad. So I like this play a lot more, and it's really not vulnerable to very much. By killing the Acolyte, you're preventing Equality from doing too much work.
Although Equality with the Pyromancer, of course, will clear the board, but it's only going to clear the board. It means that the tempo will be passed straight back to Complexity to go ahead and just rebuild, and they've got a decent hand for doing that with.
Yeah, that was a really good timing on the Pyro, because once you play the Pyromancer with Equality, if the South Sea Captain's on the board, you cannot kill the other Pirates. So you really needed to address that South Sea Captain as fast as possible, because the +1/+1 is an aura effect, just like the War Leader, right? Like in the mirror match when, well, you know, Firebat notoriously did that recently, and tried to, you know, Wild Pyromancer Equality the board, and it didn't work out because the +1 health was preventing it from applying.
Yeah, the rules in Hearthstone are different from certain other card games where the auras are constant. They don't sort of remove when the card is removed. Well, they do, but the timing means that they're not effectively removed. This is interesting because they want to fix their curve as much as possible here, but there's no really clean way to fix it. So they're just going to go ahead and play sensible Hearthstone, if you like, here. And next turn, just hope to pick up something to play on 2 mana.
I mean, we can't argue with the fact that there's a 4/2 weapon right now that could become a 5/3 on the back of the Blood Cell Cultist if this 3/3 stays. So Complexity, if they dodge the possible 1 ooze in Neirea's list, are going to be able to just push in a ton of damage. They do have Forbidden Healing, which is a good way to stabilize. Warrior will run out of steam if you clean up their board. But with 1 Equality down and 1 Wild Pyromancer down, there's the double True Silver. Consecration, not of huge help against 3 health and 4 health minions. Kind of difficult here for Neirea.
Yeah, and he's going to be torn every turn for the next 2 or 3 turns between developing a board and and just getting punched in the face for a load, or dealing with a board but not getting anywhere, and then just facing another board. And it's going to be really hard for him. I think the Ivory Knight might help him out significantly, but this turn is going to be such a mess.
Move quickly.
I guess you could just play Solemn Vigil. It's a little bit slow, or just double minion to just contest the minion and force the opponent to answer your pyro. Because if the pyro lives and you get a consecration, then you might lose a lot of the stuff that you want to keep alive.
Yeah, the way they've played it means that they can deal with at least one minion next turn because of the bluegill in hand. So something's going to damage Mr.Yagut's board. But again, they've Complexity just picking up nice things here. Difficult decision. They need to start getting that damage in. They have only done effectively 5 damage, despite all their good play so far.
I mean, that's the thing. They can accelerate the pace at which they deal damage, but all it takes is one forbidden healing, and that damage vanishes. Right. So you really need to make sure that you're controlling the board and putting the paladin on, like, in a position where he has to spend a lot of cards and a lot of actions removing your board. And once that's done, then somehow, if there's no Tyrion, you can usually close out the game very quickly. That's one of the biggest problems. Yeah,
you want it to be so that if Liquid just heal for 16 on turn 8, you just hit them for 16 on turn 9, and it's all undone straight away. Right. Yeah, this board is going to do almost exactly that.
So very well played here, Complexity, making sure that the 4/4, is able to protect the South Sea Captain, but beyond that, also killing the Pyro guarantees that there is no possible consecration for 3 damage, which would have allowed the Team Liquid to clean up the board. So very well done, using the weapon as a way to keep the board. And again, Team Liquid not finding any way to remove this. It's just not really working out for them at the moment.
Yeah, I think Complexity went with that. They said, well, you couldn't deal with my 3/3 last turn, so a 4/4 versus a 1/1, we're going to put you in the same exact situation. Can you deal with what is effectively 3 damage needed again? Yeah. So nothing's changed.
Yeah. They've read that there was no choice of a champion, as it was very obvious. They've read that the only possible threat to them at that specific point was a potential second equality pyro, if that pyro stayed alive, and a consecration with Pyromancer on the board. So taking that line of play, very good preventive measure by Complexity.
16 damage here. 16 damage they can do if they want to, and they probably won't, but they might choose to. Without Arcanite Reaper,
won't? I think you do.
They might just decide to let loose here and say, well, I've got Arcanite Reaper to clear up the mess later.
No, I'm good, but I really like the damage approach, because you're on turn 7, so that's before Tyrion, that's before Ragnaros Lightlord. You don't want them to get to 8, right? That's one of the things you'd rather avoid if you're given the choice.
And how do you
I like that line of play.
If you clear my board, I'll hit you with the Arcanite Reaper. That's assuming you've got a way to clear the board and play your Swampoos anyway. If you heal, well, I'm going to hit you for another, whatever that lot is. A lot. Caster math, 16.
Yeah, now Neirea's got to figure out how to do this, because he can use Consecration with the little Murloc to bring out another Bluegill and a potential War Leader. But the question is, can he heal enough, right?
14 isn't enough, and this is the situation we were talking about earlier, where you can heal for 14, but it's just coming right back at you. It would keep him alive, and maybe then try and pick up a Tyrion. Would that even be enough, though?
No, not over 2 turns. I think we're at the point where you have to consecrate and hope that the Finja brings out second Bluegill and a War Leader, as opposed to 2 War Leaders. And then that way it leaves you with enough mana left over to heal yourself just a tiny amount. And that's a double War Leader.
And that, yeah.
You can play Bluegill and 2 health off of Forbidden Healing.
Yeah, maybe it works.
That's the only way you live, because there's a 5-attack weapon onto the board right now.
So many outs here. Absolutely so many outs coming up.
But it might fail. There's a Lay on Hands and a Tyrion. Okay.
So this is the game.
On the draw for the win here. Okay, that's going to be it.
And I don't have to change my notes. Complexity do pick up lethal there, but there were probably quite a few whiffs there, because the game changes completely next turn if they don't pick up lethal there.
Yeah, they could have found a second Reaper, another Fiery War Axe, another upgrade, a Bloodcell Cultist, a Dread Corsair. There are a lot of cards in that deck that did not offer the lethal for a Complexity. So fortunately for them, they managed to take it, but it could have been much worse.
Certainly could. They'll be delighted to get that out of the way. Paladin, notoriously going 6-0 in a tournament recently. Nobody wants to face that happening to them, and it can just go through your lineup. If you do start losing the counters to Paladin, it can just go straight through like that 6-0. So they'll be delighted to get it out of the way. And also, the longer your warrior stays alive, just the more chance it's got of being ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they did ban the rogue, so that's not a matchup they're going to be running into. Right. But there are still a lot of decks on Liquid's side that, you know, Complexity is going to be happy to face off against. With the Warrior, notoriously, there's the Dragon Priest, which you don't mind. I mean, a lot of people... I mean, you probably don't Q Dragon Priest here, but it's one of those things where if there is no Tempo Mage in the lineup, then maybe that's your best bet, because Warlock is not really... you know, in that amazing of a spot. Hunter is not an option, really not an option. Mage, if it's not tempo, you know, sure, that's fine, but it's still not the best option. Priest, not so good. Druid, definitely not. Complexity could sweep with that warrior.
Yeah, and just looking at Liquid again, just, you know, if this warrior loses for Complexity, they've still got their rogue because of the way they organise their decks. Liquid haven't even got a chance to win with warrior and rogue. They're like 2-0 down before they start, the way that they organise their decks, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Warrior, Rogue, and Shaman being banned, that is, for Liquid, because Complexity gets to just rain chaos over whatever decks are there, and those being the 3 best decks in the metagame, according to, I think, most players at this point.
Yeah.
That's essentially, you know, a third of your options, of your best ones, the top third of your decks are gone. And now you're left with, you know, the lower portions of your deck lineups. And you just don't want to be in that spot. Sjow might have to play his Hunter.
Wow. And then I can rib him about that for ages. But yeah, when you don't get to play a single Patches in any of your decks, that's got to feel really grim. They just banned Patches out, basically, is what happened here.
Yeah, they banned every single deck that had Patches as, according to... Wait, in Sixto's words, Patches decks are the best decks.
Yeah, if you haven't got Patches, play Kazakus. If you haven't got either of them, don't play at all, I think, is pretty much how it goes in his eyes. It doesn't seem to be too far off right now for Ladder, at least.
Yeah, so I guess at this point, Complexity is not really worried about anything, because even if the Warrior dies off, they still have the Shaman to go to. As you might have noticed, Yagut has all the decks stacked. So to explain the format for those of you who might have just tuned in, 9 decks, 3 bans, 1 ban per player. Complexity put Warrior, Shaman, Rogue on the same player. You can only ban one of these 3. The other 2 are going to go through. So that distribution strategy was probably a lot more... carefully planned, yeah. I feel, than Liquid's. Although Liquid might have had a secret deck strategy that we just haven't figured out yet, and they plan to isolate some deck or another. But this needs to be Tempo Mage.
Needs to be Tempo Mage. What is it? Doesn't look very Tempo Magey.
Yeah,
must be said. Although if you're not going to, I mean, this is a decent hand. This can win this game very easily, in fairness.
Yeah, this is a hand that's actually really good. You've got the anti-weapon, you've got the Doomsayer, Blood Mage plus Arcane Blast. These cards all represent good ways to trade with stuff like Frothing Berserker, weapons, and early development of threats. So I think if any Reno Mage hand was going to do this, this would be it.
I think when Reno Mage was first made, this is the deck it was trying to counter, and both decks have evolved so much that it's not quite as powerful as it was in this matchup. Mm-hmm. But the very first Reno Mage were playing like the Twilight Flamecaller and all that stuff to just make sure that Pirates could never win. And these are the hands you needed in that deck. So I think that Neirea is in a really good spot here.
Yeah, this is a favored matchup for the Mage, if I'm not mistaken, by a slight margin, something like 55-45. But it is still one of the matchups where if you get the wrong hand, the Warrior will just run you over. In this spot, though, Mr.Yagut not picking up Small-Time Buccaneer, not really getting the explosive opener that he wants in a spot like this. So this may very easily go in Reno Mage's favor super early.
So I think, yeah, Yagut's going to have to go for this pretty quickly. It looks like Small-Time Buccaneer. Maybe you just got to play the Finley in small time, right?
Oh, it seems like the only option available. You want to play your board before bad things happen, and the Mage ends up stabilizing. So putting as much stuff on the board as early as you can, given that the AoE doesn't really start until turn 6 in that deck, if you discount Doomsayer and Frost Nova.
Not attacking with the weapon there, partially because of the upgrade, but also partially because there's a Frothing Berserker in hand, which you can use that weapon to buff next turn. So just making sure that he's going to get the maximum out of those 2 cards. It's amazing how quickly Doomsayer isn't good enough, by the way. You think that turn 2 and 0-7 would be good enough to stick on the board, and it just isn't.
Yeah, right now it isn't, and that's because of the upgrade, but otherwise it could have been a bit of an issue. I mean, Now that Neirea saw that the Hunter hero power was picked up, the Doomsayer is looking like it could be safe, given that the opponent needs to have Fiery War Axe or some other form of charging damage to kill the Doomsayer, because they can't play Moral Strike, they can't really use anything efficient. You know, dumping a Heroic Strike on there doesn't feel amazing. So...
And he doesn't want to use his Arcane Blast, because next turn he can deal with the Frothing with it, with the Blood Mage as well. And you can see him hovering over it there. He's obviously discussing that with his team. And, you know, kill the 3-2 now because you're taking damage, or save it for next turn in case there's a 4 health minion in Yagu's hand. And yeah,
right,
this makes far more sense. This makes far more sense.
Yeah, we're preventing the buff on the Small-Time Buccaneer, which is a big deal. So we're forcing the Warrior to have another weapon. And on the flip side, we're also not giving him the opportunity to get a good trade, since the Warrior's hero power now does not allow him to ping that ooze. So, yeah, putting the Warrior in a bit of an awkward spot.
Yeah, and if your Frothing Berserker does just get wiped out, you lose this game quite badly. Don't really want to 2-for-1 yourself, but... I mean, a 6-4 for 3 mana is not a bad card.
Right. It's definitely a card you're happy to play here, because the answers in the Mage's deck for that Frothing are at least 1 turn away on average.
Yeah.
Aside from Blood Mage, Thanos, Arcane Blast, we're talking Polymorph, we're talking Forgotten Torch plus a ping on turn 4, which is amazing for you, and by that point you may even be able to get more damage output. So I think this Frothing is just a card you cannot not play, and Team Liquid will have planned around that, knowing full well that the only way this game just runs away from them is if the Frothing sticks around.
Yep.
And that's the reason they played the Ooze the turn prior, and are now setting up a really brilliant kill with the Arcane Blast Blood Mage.
Yeah, this is going to keep the pain coming just for a short time from Yagut, but Complexity will already be at the stage where they think they can't win, and if there's a Reno Jackson in the opposing hand, which there isn't, they'll know they can't win. But they're just going to get as much damage in before turn 6 as possible and hope it all goes away.
Well, right now it's still fine. They've gotten their major opponent, you know, at 20 health at least, you know, below the 20 health count. So if there's no healing, if there's no ice block, this could still be done. It's going to be a little bit awkward, granted, but, you know, Kor'kron Elite, Arcanite Reaper, you've seen the weapon removal, there's no taunt. You can definitely do this given the right set of card draws.
Yeah, the Hunter power will obviously give them that outside chance. No way for the Mage to slow that down, apart from the secrets, apart from the healing. But I think Mages have cut quite a lot of the healing from the deck in recent times as well.
Yeah, Mistress of Mixture sometimes not making the cut. There's a few cards that used to give them a lot of health.
Farseer.
That have been moved out of the deck, yeah.
So, this is also another difficult decision. This is where you have to decide your entire game, right? Do you just ignore this, or do you bother to take it down?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did something go wrong?
Yeah, something must have gone wrong there, because...
In no universe do you concede in that spot. As
maybe they picked up a card that wasn't in their deck, something like that.
Yeah, maybe the submission of the deck list did not conform to the deck that we saw on the screen. If one card was off... Okay, we were told that the Liquid played the wrong Mage deck. They queued the wrong Mage deck. So despite the fact that they were quite far ahead, which in this case they were, they're still, you know, rematching. So it's not one of these cases where... Oh no, we're behind, guys. We killed the wrong deck, and we just need to. No, they were actually winning this quite strongly. So wrong Mage deck. There's gonna have to be a rematch on that front. It's unfortunate because they were in such a good spot to take out that Warrior and just eliminate it from the line of threats that could be coming their way. But who knows? I wonder what the next Mage is, because if this wasn't their actual Mage list, then perhaps they've played a different list with more healing. Perhaps they're playing Tempo Mage. I'm really curious as to what it is that wasn't right with this deck list.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the card was that would have tipped them off they're playing the wrong deck, because most of those cards look pretty normal in there.
Yeah, and Complexity had the option here, you know, according to the rules, to simply take the victory and go 2-0 up against Liquid. So shout out to Complexity for at least agreeing to rematch as opposed to just stealing the win. Not stealing, granted it is according to the rules, but just taking it home and saying, you know what, we won. We just need to, we just need to sort of know, I'll just take this win for free. Thanks, for your slip up. But it wasn't a real game. We didn't really get to play. So Complexity here being very sportsmanlike. I like that.
The modesty is, as Nox shouts out his own team.
I have to. These guys are really, they're nice guys.
No, but I mean, everything you said is absolutely right. I just thought I'd highlight the modesty there. Hey, my team are a bunch of nice guys. Which
I did. It says nothing about me though, but.
Yeah, apart from that noxious guy. We've done that twice. I must stop doing that one. Okay. So another decent looking hand here for Liquid. And, I mean, a pirate hand's a pirate hand from Yagut. He could do with a 1-drop, but he'll get one most likely.
Yeah, being on the coin, though, a little bit, of a more explosive start for Complexity players if they get the 1-drops to go with this hand. They would have to find Small Time Buccaneer, because if they get Small Time Buccaneer and a Fire War Axe, that effectively is 7 damage on turn 2 to counter a Doomsayer. It's a pretty big deal. Wow, that opener...
The hand that you want as this deck, obviously. This is completely insane. The only thing that might slow them down is how to use the blood sale here. Like, which weapon do you want her to buff? Do you want to use the coin to do that, etc.? But I think we just see the standard 2 1-drops we played. It'd be pretty crazy not to.
Yeah, getting Small Time Buccaneer and N'Zoth's first mate just seems like the nuts, because if Doomsayer comes down worst case scenario, which is usually the worst case scenario, you have a perfect answer to it. So I would be surprised if they didn't go for that.
Yeah, and they would even encourage... Yeah, this is pretty silly. They'll encourage the Doomsayer that they can then kill.
Yeah, although on the flip side, and this is the devil's advocate play, if you show that you're coining it out, then they know how much damage you've got coming in, and they're more likely to assume it's going to die, but they can't afford not dropping the Doomsayer. The fear that this gets even worse next turn is what's going to keep them in check, and they're going to be forced to play the card.
Yeah, Yagu's looking pretty pleased with himself. Well played, Yagut. See, first game of the day draws patches. Now he's getting into the swing of things and just drawing perfect stuff.
Did you ever, in that spot, ping a 1-1 and then go Arcane Blast Doomsayer on turn 3?
I mean that's the play that would have worked, right?
You could have definitely killed... I mean, you can always kill the 1-1 next turn, right? With the Arcane Blast ping, and it's still fine. And now you're forcing an answer that is likely not going to be a minion, since there's no chargers at this point in the game. You're forcing a bigger weapon. But
interesting. I don't think I would have done it, but I can see that. I mean, it would have been the right play. It would have worked really well if they'd managed to read into the hand a little bit from, Yagut did go face with a 1-3 for instance. Then maybe they could have done that. But hey, let's just draw a potion instead.
That's a draw that Neirea is more than happy to find.
If in doubt, just draw potion. What could go wrong? No attack here, with the next turn being very pirate orientated. I can't speak, but we know that.
Orientated.
Yeah, orientated.
You forgot a T.
How many T's are in there? About 7. Okay, on with the show. On with the beating here. Get your ordering right.
Yeah, for all the, the initial aggression that came out of Complexity and the perfect volcanic potion there from Team Liquid, Pirates still ahead on board, and at 21 health, you're feeling comfortable, but you still need a little bit more than this to feel like you're guaranteed a victory. So it's just a mixtures where the ping is going to come down. Helps set up for an Arcane Blast on a 3-4, so it's going to be a very nice follow-up in the next few turns.
Yeah, the Pirate deck is, I mean, apart from the fact everybody hates it because it's so good, and it's surprising how much sustain it has. Like, it can deliver massive amounts of damage if left unchecked. I remember one game when I was learning it at the very, very start of the meta. Yeah, some people have to learn Pirates, guys. Somebody renoed me. I was like about to concede, and the guy was teaching me, just like, no, just keep playing. You're going to kill him anyway. It did like 70 damage in a game.
Yeah, the weapons with the extra upgrade and Blood Cell Cultist help the warrior really reach critical amounts of damage that go way beyond what you'd expect out of an aggro deck to do so. It's one of the scariest decks because of that reason.
Yeah, and look at this. This is almost exactly that situation. Even a Reno here obviously would help, but they're already panicking. They go for 5. Yes, they went for 5.
Yeah, you want to get the 7 armor for the amount of mana you get compared to the amount of health you get is a better ratio than 10 mana for 10 armor. So it's much, much more likely to keep you alive against this aggro deck. But there's a Mistress of Mixture, so technically 4 more health is available to Team Liquid. Mr.Yagut, though, double heroic strike with a Reaper developed means that he's got access to 13 damage right away, and 18 if you account for the second hit from the Reaper. So there is lethal over 2 turns right now, assuming there is no freeze, no weapon removal, and Mr.Yagut just gets to swing with this axe a second time.
Oh, and there's some more as well.
Yeah, might as well.
Why wouldn't you want 4 more damage straight to the face? The only question is, would they have Reno'd there? This is the first question you've got to ask yourself. Would our opponents have Reno'd, or was the Kazakas actually better for them? If you decide that they haven't got Reno, then you can play your elite and just go all face. If you think they might have a Reno, you've got to consider taking down this 3-3.
Yeah, I really like going face either way because you're at least forcing it, whereas if you don't show any more damage, they might just feel safe. But by pushing this, you're guaranteeing the Reno comes out. And either way, it's not a card you beat anytime, right?
Yeah.
It's never going to be something you beat. Now, could this ever be a Hail Mary Firelance Portal, since you're dead to the weapon anyway?
How many things have taunt that it can make? Not many, I feel. They're the sort of numbers.
Fen Creeper.
No. Oh, there you go.
I mean, if he doesn't have any mana, with 2 mana, they're hoping to find a way to not die to the weapon. So they're fishing for ooze here, and they don't find it. They were looking for Frostbolt, but they already used it up. Maybe Ice Lance or ooze. Maybe those 2 outs were exactly what they were looking for.
Yeah, that's savage. Looking like they were going to go to 1-1, having to have that regame, and now 2-0 down, and Pirate Warrior getting it done.
Yeah, against a matchup which technically they're not hyper favored against. So this is putting Team Liquid on even more of a back foot as the Warrior just keeps tearing through their decks. I don't even know what's left for Liquid to really go to that's going to feel good, because you've got the Warrior out, the Rogue, and the Shaman. I mean, Paladin's done, Mage is done, you've got Druid, you've got Priest, you've got Hunter, you've got Warlock.
I mean,
Warlock could be done with.
Yeah. Warlock or possibly the Priest. I mean, the Priest isn't favoured by any stretch, but a good Priest hand, if you go Northshire into a 2-3, into a buff, into Holy Nova, maybe it can get it done.
Yeah, that seems like I mean, either way, you'll have to play all those decks. So the issue is really, what do you want to sacrifice first if it's going to lose? So you want to take your highest win rate to at least get 2 wins with that one deck and hopefully not have to play the rest. But they're going to have to do some sweeping action here, because if they don't win more than, say, 3 games at this point with a single deck, they'll still be forced to play Hunter at the end of the day. And there isn't really a single deck you want to play that deck against, unfortunately.
And you've also got to keep something that doesn't lose instantly to Shaman. Like, because that's just going to be what gets queued against you if you do win this game. Mr.Yagut, you go, okay, here's my Shaman deck because we stacked our lineup really cleverly.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest things at this point, where Complexity is probably going to open up every single series with Yagut, you know, playing either Rogue, Shaman, or Warrior, whatever is left, and then trying to sweep. And if it doesn't work, we brute force it with the other decks that are available. But always opening up with Yagut seems to be their general strategy. And I would not be surprised if that just stuck through. There's really no good counter to the entire lineup as it stands, which makes the strategy that they've employed particularly strong. We've seen other players in the event try something similar, but it's never quite as stacked. Luminosity has the exact same approach, whereas Delay is playing Rogue, Shaman, Warrior. But other teams didn't really go all that crazy with one person stacking the 3 power decks. Kraken did as well, I think. So 3 out of the teams that we have.
And as these guys are allowed to communicate, it's not like you're leaving one player without his favourite deck or something like this. Worst case, someone could backseat. Yeah, if the Rogue deck ends up in the hand of someone who can't play Rogue, and that's definitely not the case here, but you can just have somebody backseat drive it if you really have to. It's a team tournament. These guys are allowed to talk to each other, as you can see on the screen. Yeah.
Actually, now that I look at the rosters, pretty much every team has done it. We've got at least 6 out of 8 teams that have actually just brought the let's stack one guy's lineup completely, you know, gone completely crazy with it, and hope that he can carry forward to victory as we just, you know, armchair help him pilot those decks. So
yeah, why not? And
seems good.
Seems good, and they have indeed gone with the Priest and Dog at the helm, and he's got his shirt on, I'm afraid, guys.
That's all right. I gave up now. If we didn't see Dog shirtless at Christmas at Sea Story Cup, I don't anticipate we'll ever see Dog shirtless. That's what it's come down to.
Wow. And you were there at Seat Story. It's your fault. You should have talked him into it. Anyway, another, well, not such a great-looking hand here, but coin into 2 potential 3-drops is obviously reasonable.
Yeah, especially if the priest doesn't find a whelp or a Northshire cleric, this 1-drop is capable of, you know, getting the enabling value on the Bloodcell cultist, and then suddenly that's a bit more troubling because now there's a 3/4, there's a 1/1, and a weapon that's a 2/4 hook. Plus the frothing coming in means that you can chip away at Grimace agents with that weapon and usually finish it off.
Okay, so there's the Northshire cleric, and that's absolutely vital in this, just to give you some sort of chance. Oh, there's an answer.
All right, well, I think, do you, that's the question of slowing down, but I don't think you can afford to, to slow down too much, because if Power Word Shield comes out, you're in trouble.
Yeah, this works okay on the curve, because next turn you hit the thing that they play, you play your first mate, you may even draw another 1-drop, and then your first mate should stick to the board. It allows your first mate, Rusty Hook, to get buffed up by the Corsair, and off you go on turn 3.
Hello, my friend. Dog's like, oh, I didn't invite you to spectate? I'm sorry. That's fine, we didn't need to see that Northshire. We did not need to see the Northshire. We knew it was there.
Okay, they're sorting it out.
Trying to click the eye.
So if Doc hasn't got something to play here, we're back as you were in trouble for the priest, and he has not got something to play here. The only sad thing there from Complexity's point of view is now they've got to decide whether to just waste this weapon, which they do have to do, to set up the pirate synergy.
I like that line, honestly. I think that's one of the best ones, just because you get to develop a patches right away, which streaks really well into the South Sea Captain you just picked up. And that's 4 damage you're representing next turn, which is amazing.
Do you think in these team tournaments... Oh.
Sorry, yeah, we're going to have to restart the game, because Spectator Mode, of course, did what Spectator Mode does, and it bugged out on us. It's just it's one of those things it does.
There we go. It's back. We sorted it. So do you think that every time somebody plays a pirate at the start of a game, the rest of the team just shouts, "Don't hit end turn"? Because everybody's done it before the patches appear.
Honestly, I think I would just let them slip up so I could bring it up later.
Oh, you evil, evil man!
Right.
Wow, they're your team. You can't lead them to sink like that.
No, watch me. So right now there's Mr.Yagut with the option of going for that could be a huge hook if you wanted to go for that over a few turns. The alternative is, you know, you play Frothing now. That way, if there's a Twilight Guardian, it feels kind of awful because you're basically giving it away to that Frothing Berserker, given what the board state even already looks like. And if it baits out a Shadow Word Pain, then that's great, because suddenly that means there's no more minions being developed, because you would have seen something on turn 3 had there been another minion. So you're really reading the hand and assuming that the Frothing is either going to slow them down or get to stick around.
Yeah. You can't just deal with a Guardian if you play the Corsair, right? Just because you just buff everything out of sight, your weapon becomes like a 3 whatever, and then you play the Captain as well.
Yeah, if you play the Captain now, you get to push 4 right now, which is great. If you bait the Pain, that's amazing. There are a few lines of play that you could take here. If you want to disguise the Pirate to get the South Sea Captain surprise value, you get the maximum amount of damage as in the form of charge damage, effectively, since you're buffing stuff that's already there.
This seems the most flexible line. You've got the Captain or the Frothing next turn, depending what happens. So keeping their options open while still delivering chunks of damage. And it's the same decision again, except it's a bit harder because next turn you're playing your Arcanite Reaper. And so your decision this turn, whatever you don't play this turn, you're not playing next turn either most of the time.
Based on the lines of play that we've seen before, I'd be inclined to assume that the South Sea Captain would come out, but there's the fear of the Blackwing Corruptor that makes the Frothing a lot more appealing. You've seen one Shadow Word Pain, so suddenly having a 2/4 is worth a lot more to you than having a 3/3 on the board that dies to the Blackwing Corruptor and gives value to the Priest incidentally, which you want to prevent.
Yeah,
so
actually,
there
you
are
can
the lines of
Arcanite
play
on 7.
that streak Pirates. What's up?
Yeah, with the upgrade, you're going to have 4 charges. You can Arcanite on turn 7, so it's not such a crucial decision now anyway. I mean, all decisions are crucial, but yeah, you're more flexible than I thought by just waiting here.
Yeah, I really like the Frothing Berserker. Again, it's a hand read move, right? You just read that there's no likely second Shadow Word Pain. You're one more turn away from Bookworm, and you prevent the Blackwing Corruptor disasters. So, very big fan of this line of play.
Yeah, and it's working so well. We can see Dog's Hand obviously here, and there is no solution to this problem that's going to make any sort of sense. And again, the Pirate Warrior being such a cheap deck, you know, that a great chance of picking up something to go with these captains next turn.
Yeah, with 2 pirates on the board, at least you've already got 4 damage to smash into a taunt if one comes up. You know Corruptor is not appealing to the opponent right now, so you're not expecting it to come out. Dog did find a Twilight Whelp, so that's a card that could be complementing a Twilight Guardian this turn. In order to just contest the board a little bit, set up for a potential Corruptor on the following turn to finish off that Frothing Berserker over some chip damage being dealt by the Drake. So, I feel like there's a few lines of play that are open, but they're taking place over the course of multiple turns.
Yeah, the Shadow Word Death obviously will deal with this Frothing at some point, and yeah, they're just going to use their mana to make the biggest thing in the way that they possibly can, and see what happens next turn. This is pretty brutal, so...
Another good card for Complexity here, picking up the South Sea Captain, South Sea Deckhand that is, to go with a South Sea Captain, representing 3 damage, so that means that they can actually kill that 3/8 if they so choose, using only minions and the weapon hit, as opposed to damaging the Frothing and putting it into Holy Nova range.
Yeah, this is absolutely beautiful now, because they're going to make Liquid decide between killing the big Frothing or clearing the rest of the board. And that's if they've even got ways to do that, which they have, as it happens, but it's still so much damage now, and really, what can they do? Let's see what they pick up. Nothing.
Well, they can heal themselves, they can play the Shadow Word Death, so they're still at least in a position where they can stabilize, but really Complexity is about 1 or 2 turns away from closing out the game, even with taunts coming up in the way.
Yeah, this second captain's going to make things so awkward for Liquid. And presumably Complexity will be able to do 2.
Well, that's lethal, right? I think if they play Captain, they're up to 11 damage. So next turn they get an auto, like a swing for the lethal play.
Yeah, there's no obvious way of dealing with it all.
Oh man, double Captain. So this is one of the cards that has been around in Hearthstone since day 1.
Yep.
Okay? And it took that long for the card to not only be okay, but great. It is a card that has done so much work in the Pirate package that it's just mind-blowing to see that it's good. Initially, in the expansion when it came out, in Mean Streets, we saw South Sea Captain being played by people just as, you know, I want to play an all-pirate deck. Let's play Naga Corsair and Captain Greenskin and Sky Captain Crag. And then as time, you know, passed, a lot of the pirates were trimmed out of the deck, and South Sea Captain is one of the few remaining cards that just keeps coming back, right? You see Naga Corsair is still around, but, you know, not in the same package as it used to be.
Hearthstone is one of those games where you've got to be so careful what you wish for, isn't it? Like, pretty sure a few months ago, I was like, oh, pirates are so cool. No, nobody likes pirates anymore.
I mean, everybody likes pirates. A lot of people just don't like that specific, you know, the specific package being everywhere. Personally, I love the fact that we're finally getting a meta game. You know, we've had anything can happen, right? That happened. That was a thing. We've had Murlocs have their time in the sun. They're actually doing very well in tournaments now. And pirates are a tribe that was just unexplored for a long time. So now we're just waiting on a demon zoo to come back. We had a mid-range demon block a long time ago. Beast was a thing up until the most recent expansion, where Hunter got absolutely destroyed by just everything going too quick for them. So it's nice to see another tribe getting its time to shine.
So Beast Druid will be the next one that everyone's been begging for ages, but every time they print a new Beast Druid card, everyone realizes that other Druid stuff's just better.
Well, no, they realize that the Druid cards that are supposed to make Beasts good aren't Beasts themselves, right? Which makes the whole ordeal more difficult to do.
Ordeal, that's such a horrible word, but it's dead on as well. Playing Druid.
Yeah. Dog with the Druid is not going to want to queue into that Warrior. Sjow with the Warlock could do it if it's a Reno lock, or Zoo if there's enough taunts that can be done. Although it's a lot more difficult now with the amount of 1-drops that the Warrior deck is packing. And the Hunter is just not interested. The Hunter would just love to be shelved and brought another day, because this isn't where you want to bring out the guy.
Yeah, like 2017, you mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just another year.
It's been a bad year for Rexar, my God.
The year of not the hunter. So 3-0. I think you've got to go for the Warlock here, and it's like last chance saloon. If you lose this game, I think you can lose 6-0.
Yeah, I think the following two games are likely going to be a complete disaster. There might be a world in which the Hunter is able to take the win, weirdly enough, with some Unleash the Hounds shenanigans, Explosive Trap, if it's that type of Hunter, as opposed to a mid-range one. But we don't know yet what type of build they've brought. There are some Hunter decks that are surprisingly strong when they get the good, trap opener. That's still a thing, but you just haven't seen them compete for a long time because they're not consistent against a wide array of decks. So you really just don't feel good about it.
Oh, they go for the Druid, which is interesting to me because that's a class that can counter several of the other decks. So even if they win this and their Druid then gets countered out of it, this is starting to eat into a deck that they'd want for different purposes now. Plus, it looks like a really hard matchup.
It is a matchup that's not as bad because of Living Roots and Swipe and Feral Rages, allowing you to stall a bit more. And they're playing Druids of the Claw in there too, so that's possibly a more defensive list, which is better tailored against this type of aggro, but it is still not what you want to be running into. After all, they did ban Rogue and keep Shaman and Warrior alive.
Yeah, that being said, this hand at least is the hand they would want, right? The Living Roots at least challenges Pirates. The Jade could get rolling, I guess. See how it goes for them. They've got the Swipe and the Feral. That's the 4 cards you want in your opening hand. Just now see if it's enough.
I'd take a Wild Growth, but, I'm a very picky player.
Sure. I've been known to drop Wild Growth one too many times from Druid decks. Just about the best card in Hearthstone. Why not?
Yeah, it just feels kind of slow. Whenever you play it, you're never like, yo, this feels so good. It's just, oh, here's this thing I have to do because I have to ramp up.
Yeah, and then realize 3 turns later, thank God I ramped up on turn 2 because I just destroyed my opponent.
Yeah, that's what Druid does. So the 1-1s are going to be coming out here, and that's great because there's no hook right now for Mr.Yagut, no upgrade. Well, never mind. So let me pick one up. But again, I don't know how much you're really
protecting a 2-1, which just gets hero powered down. You probably just develop your. I mean, when do you play the upgrade? So,
I think that's the question, right?
If you put off the Pirate, when do you play her anyway? You don't play her till turn 5 if you don't play her now?
I think I like upgrade the more I think about it, because otherwise you might just get double traded into Wrath and then Frothing comes down and the opponent has the coin still. So you're not looking really that strong on the back of, streaked removal from the Druid player. So I don't mind upgrade and you just push 3 damage to face. Unless you want to make that 2-1 hit again by forcing your hero power on it, but it's tough to say.
Yeah, just go trade into one of these, I assume. Okay, trade into none, fair enough.
Yeah, you wouldn't trade, I think. If you were going to make the upgrade play, maybe sometimes you trade, probably not. But
yeah, just to force the hero power, yeah.
Definitely don't here in that weird spot. So we've got a possible Wrath play that can be used to kill the 2-3, but there is no Wrath in hand, so Complexity not really worried about too much the Team Liquid's holding at the moment.
Yeah, Liquid will be just looking to see if there's any funny trades they can do here that don't involve the obvious, because that Swipe in their hand will be like, oh, we really want to do that. But it looks like they're just going to have to make a fairly straightforward play here. Save their coin for turn 4 or 5 to get out that Azure Drake or that Behemoth.
Yeah, I wonder how many Druids of the Claw Team Liquid is running in that list, because Jade Behemoth is one of the notorious good cards to have against a Pirate deck, given that it tanks 6 damage. And if you've got Druid of the Claw on top of that, that's a total of potentially 4 taunts for 24 damage mitigation.
Dog's going to overrule this. I think they're going to bump everything into the 2-3. No, they're not going to. Just wonder if they bump everything into the 2-3 there. And then Swipe next turn. It'd be 2 telegraphed, so they just didn't do that.
I mean, you still want to keep Swipe for the Frothing Berserker usually in the matchup, right? That's one of the... I wouldn't say the best, I mean, the only target, but it's definitely one of the best, if not the best. Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree with the line of play that they took. So coin Swipe to deal with the Frothing Berserker. Again, no big choice here. They had no option other than this. And that means that Complexity will get to stick this Pirate onto the board for unless they wild growth on turn 4, potentially a few more turns. It depends what ends up happening, but this is a spot where Complexity is just happy they get to push damage to face, forcing the Druid to either do nothing or pick up a second swipe.
Yeah, and they may end up having to waste this Feral Rage, which what you want to do with that card is stabilize, then gain 8 armor and ride out that armor to victory. But what you tend to end up doing is having to kill something with it, which means you take face damage and you don't get the 8 armor, and then it all just spirals downhill.
Well, now that's a good play. Wild Growth into the Hero Power will kill the 2-1, and they got the ability to play the Jade Behemoth to contest that Kor'kron Elite that is next turn. So they're still not too bad off, but they will need to use that Feral Rage for healing, and hopefully for them, pick up another taunt. Otherwise, the Warriors got nothing between him and your face for a little while.
Yeah, it's
pretty rough.
They are going to get some sort of stabilization, but like we were saying earlier, this Pirate deck just has too much. It just keeps on coming and hitting you. And that's exactly what they're doing. Not much more to say than that Yagut's just going to keep hitting you in the face.
So Jade Behemoth may look appealing, but paired with what is the question. Do you innervate out a Hero Power play? Do you innervate out Jade Idol to get more 3/3s? Yep, there we go. We're gonna start developing those Jades, not because we want to kill the opponent, but because we want to trade with his stuff. And if we don't get those minions out onto the board, we're not gonna be able to do that. So this line of play definitely solid, and that's a card you're happy to see here.
Strangely enough,
that is insane.
Yeah, adds up just so perfectly for what they want to do. And Yagu's smiling as he comes in for another 10 points of damage. It's not quite over that Feral Rage that the Liquid have managed to defend, but they're just... is that enough?
They can survive. That's a 5/10.
That's enough.
That's a 5/10. It stops all the damage on the board right now. So barring Mortal Strike to face, if it's in the deck, that's fine.
And Feral Rage next turn gets them out of range.
Yep, still not enough here to clean up this Ancient of War and go face. There's a chance for Team Liquid to stabilize with that Feral Rage and the Druid Drake.
Yeah, gonna go to 12 health and draw another card and have the better of the boards. And so what Yagu's wondering here is if he plays the axe and hits him, he doesn't have to sacrifice his whole board. He'll be able to keep something for next turn. But he's going this way. This makes more sense. He could have hit with the axe twice and only let the Ancient trade into 1 minion, keeping the other one alive. Minion,
right. Oh, the taunt with the Feral Rage. I think Liquid's locking this board down right now.
My agreement.
And this is absolutely gigantic.
Very, very good for the Druid player all of a sudden. And just like this, Complexity finds a draw they're really not too keen on. They might stick around, but this is a moment where you realize this is running away from you.
Right, I want to highlight how well Liquid played to win this, because they had every chance to use that Feral Rage as removal. And they did that thing we were talking about. They used the Wild Growth to do nothing for a turn. And that extra 1 mana meant they stabilized just in the nick of time. And they're going to actually get out of... that would have been them out of the tournament, I'm going to go as far as to say, if they lost this game.
Yeah, this might have been the game that just keeps them in the series, because for all intents and purposes, the following matchups they had lined up against the Warrior were not looking brilliant. So definitely what they wanted to see here. However, now Complexity is facing down 8 damage, so they're on a 3-turn clock as of right now.
Fiddly into Hunter, yeah. Oh, live chat might just stop them from conceding.
Okay, we might pick up something else on the back of this, right? We get a weapon equipped. We get to use the South Sea deckhand right now. So there's no swipe, there's no AoE removal. Maybe we can push the damage to face at this point, is what Complexity is thinking.
Yeah. And there is none of that stuff right now, although the hand should sort itself out with all that card draw.
Yeah. Yagut looking quite somber, but he knows that there is still the shaman in his back pocket. So even if this goes too bad, it's not going to go that bad.
I want to see it come down to Hunter versus Hunter.
Wouldn't that just be a thing?
It would be a very sad thing. Alright.
So you can use Wrath here to clean up one of the minions and draw a card, use your hero power to kill off the other one, and at the same time also push some damage to face to set up the lethal clock to make sure things don't get out of hand and you actually just give him time. You want to make sure you at least force those life taps to be dangerous.
Yeah, and from the side of Liquid, they might just be you start seeing ghosts. You start saying, well, we're going to win this. We just need to make sure we have the maximum health we possibly can here.
Yeah, maybe there's a good argument for the Jade Spirit. Oh, well, they're playing it because exactly that. Setting up the lethal is very considerable because now Complexity can't life tap unless they double trade.
Right. And so they had to life tap, but it worked out okay. They're going to be able to stay alive one more turn.
Well, now Liquid back in the position of needing to address this, but they've got the Drake, they've got the Wrath, and they could pick up Swipe or Feral Rage number 2 at any time to finish this off.
Yeah, both teams just making the other one, like, you could kill me, but you have to deal with this. And that's happening both sides for the last 3 turns. You set up lethal, but if you do, you will die. So, forcing the trades out of each other here.
I'd still give the edge, like a pretty big edge to Team Liquid at this point in the game.
Yep.
But anything can happen. Maybe they just zone out and go Wild Growth Jade Blossom on turn 7.
See what happens with these draws. No time for this auctioneer, of course. They're desperate to find that second Feral Rage, which will definitely secure the game, but...
Okay, so they're going to take it a bit slower. They went for the cycle, tried to find the lethal right away, which they didn't. So now they're going to be probably trading into that South Sea and then killing the 3-4 onto the board with a 4-4. Still have enough mana left over to develop that Assure Drake, right?
Yeah, I think so.
As they've only played Wild Growth and the Wrath this turn, so they might go double Jade, sure. Now that's setting up lethal if I've ever seen a lethal being set up.
Yeah, kill me or die.
This could still be there could still be a kill if we're looking for Heroic Strike off the top. Heroic Strike off the top. That would be absolutely disgusting. But
not quite there. That was so close. Yeah, Corkin would have been 1 mana over. Heroic Strike, the only way to do it. Didn't get there.
Team Liquid playing with fire, but they did it. I guess they were thinking if I play the Drake and I just start initiating trades and using that Wrath as removal, if they get a Reaper and trade, I don't have anything else onto the board. But I would have liked to see them play it as cautiously as possible, and maybe setting up the earliest lethal was the way to do so. So, well played. At least the Warrior's gone. Their nemesis so far has been taken out.
Yeah, they managed to, again, just to highlight, they held on to that Feral Rage, meant that when they drew the Ancient, they could play that as 10 healing effectively. And then, because they held on to the Feral, because they cast the Wild Growth, they were able to stabilize the Azure Drake and the Feral and keep their tournament. I mean, their tournament would still have been alive, but it would have been a hopeless case from 4-0. 3-1, Druid actually getting a win. See what Complexity decide to do about it.
I mean, the Druid's a deck that you can definitely go ahead and play a Shaman up against, especially if you're running the new Jade version, as it tends to be a lot quicker than the Druid, right? Like that new Jade Shaman with the Pirate package, no Totem Golem, and just the Jade Chieftains tends to do what Jade Druid does, but better, aside from the fatigue game plan, I would say.
Yeah, that's... I wonder if they're just going to... I don't know, I was going to protect their Shaman, but Shaman's just going to kill them. Shaman will just win. They've got a chance to run their Hunter out and give that a run here, but they've got another Hunter or a Lock. That's actually fine for Hunter anyway. And, you know, in relative terms, in the world where 45% is good, you've got a mirror match, you've got to come later, you'll probably save it for 50%.
Is it even 45%? I'm not sure. I feel like that deck just gets torn apart by...
everything.
Yeah, by almost everything. Any tempo denial is going to ruin the Hunter, I find, in those matchups. Unless, of course, it's a very special brew of Hunter that Team Liquid brought to the event. That Druid is going to have to carry them really, really hard, and so will that Warlock. So they're going to have to bank on those classes just doing everything for them.
Yeah, something we've seen, actually, where in 9-class formats, where one of the classes is bad, we've seen it with Priest, and we saw it with the old Shaman before Shaman became absurd, is... people building what would be an absolutely diabolical ladder deck, like just wouldn't be able to win a game or two, but focusing on one deck, you know, just sticking a deck together that will beat one other class. We've seen people even focus those decks to win the mirror, for instance.
Right. It's a little bit difficult in Last Hero Standing because you're looking to sweep, but it's a lot easier to counterplay in Last Hero Standing exactly for that reason. But when you're 3 games down, your wiggle room to counterplay is kind of limited, right? So now with the need to win 5 more games with Druid, Warlock, and Hunter as the only available classes, Liquid is at least going to need 2 more wins on the Druid to feel good, and possibly 3 on the Warlock, because that Hunter is going to be a Hail Mary at the very end. You know, they're not going to play this until they're backed into a corner, and nothing good can come of, you know, playing the Hunter.
Again, unless any of these teams have just brought a Hunter deck that counters one thing, just to try and force a 1-on-1 out of your worst deck. But like you said, they're backed into a corner. They won't be able to use that Hunter effectively at the moment. They're just going to have to beat everything, and Complexity have got the upper hand, not just with a 3-1 lead, but because they're going to be able to counter-pick however they feel. They'll be planning out how the rest of the match should go on the percentages now, and they'll pick what they feel is best for that, obviously.
Yeah, what do you think will be coming out there from Complexity? Because we do know that the Druid, Priest, and Rogue are banned on their side, so they still have access to Mage, they have access to Paladin, Warlock. The Hunter's probably not something they want to do, but they've got Shaman left, so do you just expect the Shaman to come out?
I think you do. I just can't see a better choice than just getting on with it with your Shaman. And we said let's pick at the start, they'll try and sweep. You're kind of in the same position. You want to sweep what's left, so take the deck that can do that.
Yeah, Shaman can definitely kill the Druid and definitely get away with the win against a Warlock as well. Yeah. Because one of the big strengths of Reno Lock is it kind of plays, you know, against Shaman by clearing up the board very often with Hellfires and Demon Rats and just setting up good board clears, which Shaman is really weak to. On the flip side, the Jade Shaman list doesn't run Tunnel Trog. It doesn't run some of the awkward, you know, early game Feral Spirit Totem Golems that you see, which means that the AoE is suddenly less relevant because you end up with an 8/8 Jade Golem staring you down at some point, or a 6/6 even, and the AoE is not effective. So how good is the Reno Lock in that spot? That makes things a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, going the other way, I think that Complexity will want to defend their own Druid to take on Liquid's Reno Lock as well. So I think we just see the Shaman come out, try and beat the Druid, and then if the Shaman does happen to lose the lock, they just play their own Druid into it anyway. Like looking ahead an extra game. I'm all for just playing Shaman. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you. They have what 2 bad matchups in the metagame, and that's pushing it.
One was the mirror.
Yeah, I don't know. Depending on if we're talking about aggro Shaman or mid-range Jade, right? Like there are different lists that we're talking about.
Oh, let's go, boys!
Can be complicated. No way! All right.
You talked me out of it, man. I was going to look like a genius there, and you talked me out of it. Oh no.
Okay, you know what? I guess if there's any class you're going to beat, it's Druid, right? Not Warlock.
Yeah, I think they might actually beat them all.
With Hunter?
If you're going to pick 3 classes to beat with Hunter, I think Druid, Warlock, and Hunter is probably about as good as it gets.
So they'd have to get a really sick opener, because one of the things I guess this deck doesn't do is develop a lot of crazy tempo. So Freezing Trap is a lot worse, and you're really looking to just put down the aggression and the tough plays, right? Like Stranglethorn Tiger, Unremovable Beast. High Main's really tough to deal with as Druid, so the threats that are in the Hunter deck can put Druid on the back foot, but Druid just ramps up so much quicker to bigger threats that it's difficult to imagine a world where they're going to feel too pressured.
Somewhere out there in Twitch chat, a guy has just woken up from a coma from 2014. He's asking why this is a bad hand. Like Freezing Traps, Animal Companions, Eagle Horn Bows. What's wrong with this?
Well, here's what's wrong with this. This is a 1-1 accompanying this 2-3 right now.
Yeah. And it's only going to get worse.
Very bold play there, Team Liquid, going for the Innervate Coin 2-3-1-1 to make sure the Hunter does not get to dictate the tempo with their, you know, huge toads, kindly grandmothers. You want to make sure that's not a thing, and getting those minions out early, especially when you have a Wild Growth, gives you a lot of wiggle room for transitioning into your own mid-game.
Yeah. Well, just a complete whiff here for Liquid, really. Obviously going to make the saplings just for some sort of board. And I guess the one thing in Complexities that gives them a chance is, like, you don't know what you're playing into here. Dog's sort of gritting his teeth, wondering if there's an explosive trap, for instance. That's a card that people might put into their Hunter to play around Pirates, who knows? And, I mean, just who knows? That's the one thing you've got on your side.
Yeah, good pickup there by Complexity. Finds
Are they going to bluff it?
Clove Huntress.
Yeah, I mean, he plays it quickly to bluff it. I like this, because the actual bounce is worth almost nothing here.
Yeah, well, you're hoping for the bow charge at this stage, right? That's one of the few ways in which you can keep up the value game. because your health total isn't really too big a deal until it dips below 12, where suddenly, you know, double feral rage with a single minion or swipe feral rage becomes a big issue against Druid. So I like this line of play.
Dog's trepidation there, like, is it snipe? No, it's not snipe. Okay. And yet, not only do they get the attempt at the bow charge, which will come, but they manage to stop the attacks.
All right, there could be a Huffer or a Leok to enable a trade on that Azure Drake if he so chooses, but that means you're foregoing the development of the Stranglethorn Tiger, which, frankly,
I think you need to develop that, right? That's one of your few ways you win this game. I guess the question is, do you use your bow? Next turn, you're going to have a lot of 3s, so you could develop 2 things, but obviously you want to start hero powering sooner rather than later as well.
No, the mind games are really working out in favor of complexity here, because that denial of efficiency, I guess, for Team Liquid basically means that Team Liquid was banking on those 1/1s, getting value trades later on when combined with other sources of damage on minions where Explosive Trap would not trigger. But because they don't have the information, they might be able to, you know, misstep themselves into an awkward spot.
Yeah, the lack of attack means they're probably going to just keep playing around Explosive now. And, I mean, this trade's no fun if you're playing around Explosive Trap.
Yeah, it feels really bad, because if you're developing the Jade Behemoth on top of that, you're also getting a 2/2, which dies to Explosive Trap, so nothing you really do in this spot feels good. I guess there's a weird argument in favor of Feral Raging the minion down and then just Hail Marying that trap and seeing what it is.
And there's another factor at work here as well. Nobody's played against Hunter for 3 months. What? Like when you play against it all day, every day, you just get this natural feel for how the traps progress and the order you want to do things. Everyone's actually having to think again rather than just go to muscle memory. It's like, oh, what traps were there again in this class?
Right, but even if you think, though,
yeah,
Explosive Trap seems so reasonable in a world of patches, right?
Yep.
It just seems like a logical thing, so... That freezing trap sniping the Drake.
JJ's gone nuts.
Complexity is freaking out. The mind games worked. Team Liquid.
The funny side, in fairness.
That was a good one. Because now they know that Explosive Trap basically means this development is very, very solid. You know, getting that Jade Behemoth with a 2/2. It's no longer vulnerable to a lot of stuff. That is so sick. And the snipe now comes out right on time to deny either the Garrison Auctioneer, the Drake, or a huge chunk of health from the Jade Behemoth is really what Complexity wanted to see in that spot.
Just JJ's reactions are always priceless, but the happy ones are probably, I don't know, people probably prefer the sad ones, but it's nice to see him happy. Now there's just a case of how much damage do you want to shove in the face? They've set this up so well.
I like just keeping the health high on all these minions to make sure that you don't get swiped into devastation. So, I guess there's an argument for killing one of the minions if you want to keep your tiger healthy, right? Since he could technically attack into it and then swipe the 3/4, possibly pop the rat pack to clear out the board. So, I see what they're thinking about.
Adding up their numbers there to see like how many turn lethal they're going to have doing if they don't do the 3 damage, and whether you want, like you say, keep that tiger alive.
Yeah, because they could win in 3 turns if things keep going this way with the bow and hero power and the tiger rat pack. That's close to just enough. So.
They may have just decided, you know what, if he runs 4 minions into this tiger, sure, we're good.
That's right. Good chunk of health. This secret deck is exactly the deck that I was referring to earlier when I said the one Hunter list that seems to work right now, and it's still kind of iffy, is the one with secrets where you can still get some crazy tempo swings, but they have to line up. You have to draw them in the right order. You have to get everything at the right time. And Complexity right now, between the mind games and the timing of the snipe, is able to clean up that 3/2, is able to go face for some more damage and put the Druid very far away from where he wants to be. It's not quite over, because all it takes is realistically a swipe to stabilize Team Liquid, but they don't have it yet.
Yeah, they're just talking what to trade in here, because one of the questions would be about saving the rats for later, for maybe a Houndmaster or something like that, but they've decided there's no swipe. There's a lot of nodding going on in the team chat there, and I think that means that they would just, he hasn't got swipe from previous plays. And Dog's going to need to pick up swipe to have any decent chance at all here, I think.
Well, they could nourish into card draw and hope they get something they want. If Ancient of War comes up or Jewel of the Claw, deadly shots waiting. Any taunt is simply going to get taken care of instantly.
And everything that Complexity have done in this particular match has just gone their way. Every sequence lined up beautifully, and yeah, it's just all gone so well.
Complexity's just been tearing it recently, and they're like, you know what? We're going to win with Hunter anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever
in a single elimination tournament, we're still going to beat you with Hunter.
It's happening. Yeah. Arguably, though, this isn't a matchup that the Hunter's, you know, worried about as much as some of the other matchups that could be running against. So I understand the reasoning behind, you know, behind queuing it up right away. It makes sense. I mean, you don't need to win 6-0. You just need to win. And if that's a deck you're never going to find a better matchup with, then take it. Even against Jade Druid, though, I'm not even sure, you know, realistically how good it is. I think Miracle Rogue might be one of the decks you want to face off against the most. You know, if you're the Secret Hunter, since you have a decent amount of aggression, being Hunter up against Rogue. Against Jade Druid, I still feel like you're overall unfavored. Yeah. But if you can mind game your opponent with that freezing trap, sometimes things happen.
And this is something I think that JJ's worked on with Life Coach before. I think that he was so good at the game that he'd sometimes talk himself out of winning games because he couldn't see a route to victory. It's like, well, I'll do this, my opponent will do this, I lose. Whereas there he found a way to go, right, if they don't play correctly, how can we win this game? And he found the way to make them play incorrectly.
Yeah, if they don't play the right way around those secrets, we win the game automatically. And that is basically what happened. The 3-1-1s, even though they didn't matter too much, going phase for 3 wouldn't have mattered a whole ton in the grand scheme of things. What mattered the most was the fact that the Drake ended up attacking into the freezing trap. That was when things went wrong, is because Team Liquid could not see a good reason to really sacrifice a 1-1 for no purpose at all. But if they had just checked, you know, just out of caution, you attack first, you know, we lose a 1-1 worst case scenario, then we kill with the Drake if we have to, if it's actually explosive.
And then we've got 2 1-1s on the board as well as our Drake, and we can develop on the board, and it probably goes pretty bad for Complexity from there on. Although they were in a pretty good spot, their hand was pretty solid, but it definitely doesn't go so easily for them.
Yeah, Unleash the Hound was also a big threat in the back of Team Liquid's mind, which is, if I get this Drake to 1 health, you know, Unleash comes up and cleans up everything. That being said, Druid goes down, and believe it or not, we're going to see Hunter again. I didn't think this is something I would say on day 1 on match 1, but it's happening. We're going to re-see the Hunter from Complexity up against Liquid's either Warlock or own Hunter.
Right. So we might even see a mirror, which would be pretty ridiculous, because Warlock isn't a big fan of being hit for 2 every turn in the face. Not when it's hitting itself for 2 in the face a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, all it takes is, you know, one...
Yeah, anything. The deck is one Warlock card.
Right. It doesn't take much for the Warlock to stabilize, so it is still kind of dubious, you know, as a Hunter going up into this. I mean, maybe you're okay with it. Maybe it's like a 50-50 at best, you know?
But, I mean, from Liquid's side there, what is your Hunter going to be best against today? And the answer is probably Hunter.
Yeah.
So maybe they just take the chance to take their 50-50, and if they can win that, then at least they've got their Hunter done their job, and then just see if their Warlock can sweep through.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, is just getting that mirror match in while they still can, because that Hunter is not going to line up very well against much of anything, aside from a potential Rogue, which they've banned out from Complexity. So Team Liquid has all the interest to do that. They've banned Druid, they've banned Priest, and they've banned Rogue, so that Hunter has really nothing to target left, aside from a Warlock. But it's not even something you want to do.
Yeah, you take your 2 mirrors, you take your Hunter mirror, you take your Warlock mirror later. And, you know, if your Hunter wins the mirror, then they've got to queue something into it. Maybe you get lucky. That's something that Hunter can do, is get lucky with that hero power, get a bit of a start, hit you for 2 a few times.
Get the secrets, really. I mean, if they get a secret opener that is just confusing enough to make them play around something that's not there, sometimes just getting that 1 extra tempo turn is what you need. You know, you get a good Cloaked Huntress turn into then a 4-drop, and that's it. Like, you've locked out the game. Even Animal Companion off curve is enough to just solidify the board state and make sure that you get the chip in with the Cloaked Huntress and a bow potentially to win the game. So we'll have to see whether or not that Cloaked Huntress is going to do work on either side. Right now, it is going to be, as expected, the mirror match.
So Hunter is going to win another game of Hearthstone?
It's happening.
It's 2 in one day. Wow, it's happening.
I mean, it has to happen for someone, but you don't anticipate it to be, you know, a happy ordeal. I really like the fact that we're getting to see this, but Team Liquid seems to be running a different list. There's the Houndmaster, a tracking, and the freezing trap to open with. And a lot of this matchup is dictated by some of the early swings that happen. So Secret Keeper, for instance, is a much better draw for Team Liquid. You're looking for follow-us, but you're looking for those 1-drops, those 2-drops, to do, you know, a lot of nasty things.
And that's pretty handy because you've got the cap trick against the coin coming up in a moment. So you get to buff your Secret Keeper like you want to, but the cap trick against coin is a really good way of negating that early advantage.
Yeah, one of the strongest plays for sure against anyone who's on, you know, on the coin, which actually has led some people to claim that maybe the coin should not be a spell, you know, and shouldn't count for a lot of those things. But when you look at cap trick, it's a very fringe scenario. This is bad, but at the same time, there's no Houndmaster coming up next turn. So you can deal with this if you're able to stabilize after this 4-2 has hit you in the face. You might be okay.
Come midnight.
You might, although the deadly shot... I think this curve just looks fantastic for Liquid here. Ragnaros is probably going to be too slow.
I like this a lot.
Never tell.
Sure?
Yep. Taking a lot of damage up front, but they could swing the game back in their favor if the aggression just slows down a little bit from Team Liquid.
Yeah, it wouldn't take that much. If JJ can pick up something better than the rat to do next turn, then definitely they could get back into this.
Such the teeth I have.
All right, checking for Snipe, and that is not Snipe. Now that he's going to be checking for Freezing Trap with the Cloaked Huntress, potentially. There is no bow, and you've seen one, so giving him Trap charges isn't a big deal, and increasing the cost of the Cloaked Huntress to 5 means you can just replay it next turn, which, again, gives you something to do before the inevitable Savannah High main turn.
Yeah, with the double high main in hand, they're just going to make sure they don't take obscene amounts of damage. It seems a good time to proc this secret. If you can work out it's freezing. You don't mind if it's explosive, I don't think.
I mean, on the flip side, one of the big worries you have is if I make this trade, then I can't kill a Secret Keeper, right? If I try right now, it turns out to be freezing. So maybe you want to trigger it with the 1-1 next turn or the 3-2 that comes out.
And
I wouldn't blame him if he just held off. Yeah.
Yeah, makes the read, holds off, and it's going to work out nicely for him, I think. And Complexity's hand's still a bit of a mess with all these 3s on turn 4. He's going to waste mana. The whole idea of playing the Huntress deck is you save mana, not waste it. So definitely really awkward for them here. And none of the cards really, like, Kill Command doing 3 damage doesn't really help. Killing a 1-1 doesn't really help when it just gets bigger. None of these cards are really helping right now for Complexity.
And there's another good turn for Sjow, who ends up finding a way to defuse the trap because the 1-1 was left alive. Of course, you wouldn't pop this in Complexity's spot. And then the 3-4 will find a trade, and there's more coming. You know, with the freezing trap for free and the hero power on top, more damage is being pushed every single turn.
Yeah, and even just something like you said, something to do on this turn. Just get the grandmother back down. Even though it costs you 4, it's cost you 2 damage. It just means you miss your hero power. Not the end of the world when you're this far in front with those high mains in your hand.
And the matchup also comes down to these, you know, first guy to play Stranglethorn, first guy to play High Main is usually the guy that gets to push the most damage over 2 or 3 turns, and that's enough to close out the game. And with the health discrepancy of 12 in favor of Team Liquid right now, it looks like they're about to win the mirror match if, you know, Complexity doesn't pick up some kind of miracle right off the top. Because right now they're still on hero power. High Main's coming down next turn, we know that much, and there's really no way to force it to not attack, even if you pick up Freezing Trap, because the High Main will be able to attack after the Grandmother. So Team Liquid looking amazing here in the mirror match.
Yeah, here we go. That's another one to the face. No freezing traps. They're taking at least 7 next turn. And not only that, but they're not going to be able to put any pressure on their own, because if they do, then there's the deadly shot. And if they don't put on much pressure, then the High Main just comes down for the win. And this just isn't going to be enough. I think that can just be ignored.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for Team Liquid to really pilot this deck to another victory, but at least they've got themselves a victory on the back of the Hunter. So if their Hunter is able to get a second victory for whatever reason, I mean, if that's a thing, this could be a beautiful comeback in the most unlikely scenario.
Yeah, they chose to play the bow in the end because that's actually the extra damage from the hero power plus the bow. That's 5 immediate damage, which they've decided is going to put so much pressure on. Putting your opponent to 3 means the bow means you need taunts. If you've got taunts, you're doing very little else. This is fine. And Liquid are going to get it back to 4-2 and much needed Hunter win.
Yeah, they're going to need more than 1 with it, ideally. Otherwise, I mean, it's just back to the drawing board for them, where the Reno Lock is going to be the only deck that can do this. So, the Hunter, I mean, I don't think you queue anything bad into it. You just want to snipe it off the face of the earth. So, frankly, if you're Complexity, just pick your best matchup in that spot.
Yeah, try not to lose your Shaman, doing something heroic, and just get on with it.
Yeah, aggro Shaman is extremely good against a Secret and mid-range Hunter. They just tend to be, whichever archetype of Hunter you're running, the aggro Shaman will demolish you. Now, a mid-range Shaman is still a big problem, whether it's the Jade version of the non-Jade, doesn't matter. It's a Shaman. It does things on the board that you can't stop. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Mr.Yagut just queued up the Shaman here, tried to get the by default win, and then kill the Warlock at the same time. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone at the last stretch here.
So if they don't queue up the Shaman, is that a sign that it's playing a slower deck, do you think? Or is it just them being Complexity because they can win with anything?
So, Control Shaman, right? In a world where Control Shaman is played, that mid-range Hunter, if the Control Shaman is running, Devolve and double Hex, for whatever reason, it's still fine, because you can often just answer what's coming down. I guess it would be a little trickier to navigate, because the bow is there, but you usually don't trigger their secrets. As a Control Shaman, you don't give them any bow charges, so the chip damage matters, but you oftentimes get to swing the game back in your favor through your own Jade play. So I would still give the edge to the Control Shaman if it were to be some randomly built deck that just comes out of nowhere, out of the woodwork, comes out Control Shaman in this tournament. But I don't anticipate it. I anticipate a deck that usually has a crazy edge over Hunter. Yeah,
Complexity aren't so much a team where they make huge new advances in deck building. They tend to tweak existing decks and make them as good as possible. All the way down the list, these 3 guys in particular. Yagu's fairly inventive, but JJ and Crane like to just put good cards into good decks. And then further down the list as well, we've got Casey, who is also sort of rotated in and out of the starting lineup. He's incredible, but he fiddles with decks and makes them better. And obviously Tyler, who is starting to get a bit of tournament practice as well. But, double #1 legend at the moment. He just plays decks that are good. Complexity just play good stuff and make it slightly better and then beat people with it.
Yeah, it's really just a matter of lineup sequencing in this spot, is what ended up happening. The mind games and the lineup building ended up mattering a lot. I'm really surprised at Team Liquid's decision to distribute the decks the way they did. There's a consensus among all other teams to build it in a way that you at least stack 2 really good decks onto the same player. In the case of Fate to Karma, they're running Warrior, Shaman, and Warlock on the same player, so that if a ban occurs, they're at least keeping, either Warrior and Shaman, Shaman and Warlock, or Warlock and Warrior. So there's always going to be a 1 good deck around. And most teams are stacking, the 3 power decks together, so only one of them gets banned. So Team Liquid in a bit of an awful spot. So before the next match, or the next game that is, starts, not the next match, a reminder, this is done for charity. All donations that you donate, basically during the course of the tournament, are going to be donated for a charity. The Battle of the Best is organized for that purpose. Gaming Aid has been supporting people with disabilities, making video games available to them and improving their quality of life by giving them games. If you don't like to give people games, then don't donate. But if you do, that'd be great. And the Able Gamers Foundation is also organized and participating in the event. They provide a ton of games to children in hospitals. And again, if you don't want to give children in hospitals games, then don't do it. But you could do it.
Yeah, it seems like good causes to me. Giving people games, making people happy, seems where you want to be in life.
Yeah, I really want to see Team Liquid coming out of this game, though. To go back to the match, I really want to see them just pull off some crazy Hunter streak. They've got the explosive trap, they've got the grandmother, they've got the bow. They're looking for a cloaked huntress and something crazy, but they could do it. I want to see them do that.
Everybody wants to see Shaman lose to Hunter. I think that's like the game at the moment. Who wants to see Shaman win anything? Whoever they are. Sad people like Shamans to win.
Complexity running the Totem Golem version of Shaman, so a much more standard aggro without the Jade package on the mid-range side. Definitely erring towards caution, making sure they can blow a deck out completely.
Yeah, and Yagut taking his time here because they're spoilt for good choices, not because they're in a tricky situation. So many options here. Are we the control is the question they want to ask. How do we lose this game? Do we need to double trade this, or do we just go face and make him do the trades? They're the questions I'll be asking right now.
Yeah, because it's all down to what's following up on turn 3 if you're the Shaman player. And for all the memes about Shaman being a really easy deck to pilot, even aggro Shaman is very, very high skill ceiling, and the win rate of the deck increases drastically at higher levels. You know, the players who play it well just play it by a margin of like 15 to 20% better than the next guy in line. It's one of those things where it's insanely different and insanely demanding.
Yeah, the reason it gets missed is just because people think that it's easy because they do well with it anyway, but they do so much better with it if they play it really well.
Yeah. It's really just something you don't notice. You just don't notice how difficult the deck is to play until you find yourself in those mirror matches where the opponent just seems to get you every time because he makes the right plays.
Another difficult turn here. The grandmother makes things really, really messy for you. Obviously, you don't want to give her charge by trading into her, but you don't want her to do bad things to you either. And
if you Maelstrom Portal, you're developing an extra minion. You know, the one draw that comes out of it. So technically, it's not that bad of a play.
And you get to clear up everything. Your guys are sort of hanging on in there.
Oh my god. When
the absolute nuts.
There was a chance. It's not over, but it's not looking amazing. We probably are going to see some weird 2-turn setup here, where Team Liquid is going to hope that they can transition into a sick turn 4, turn 5 coming up in the next few turns. That bow is going to have to carry them.
Yeah, it's going to be hard work. The Yagut doesn't want to play this Lightning Bolt next turn. He wants to play Azure clean on turn 5 for a bit of refill here. Yeah, this bow, this is just... ouch.
Yeah, it's still a very good setup for the explosive trap, but it's a telegraph. And at this point, Mr.Yagut is going to know it. And probably not develop onto this board more than a single totem.
Yeah, let's see what he rolls. If he rolls the healing totem, he may decide to develop. That way he wouldn't be putting too much away. He may also just go, no, you're right. He reads it and keeps it back. Nice.
Yeah. Explosive trap just seems like the obvious play, clearly. A much needed reprieve here for one turn to slow down this Shaman player. Not out of the woods yet. There are still Spirit Claws with spell damage sources, represent phase damage, lightning bolts, lava burst. Just looking at the hand texture right now, Complexity is able to push Blood Mage Stalno's lava burst whenever they feel like for 6, and the lightning bolt on top of that for a total of 10 damage. So really, they're only 9 away from lethal.
Wow, that's ridiculous. The other thing you can do here is try, I think one of the things they can do here, I'm not saying this is good, is try and roll a healing totem, because over 2 turns your guys would heal out of range of explosive. Alright.
So they're going to value the deck, and they're not going to trigger that trap to not give the hunter any way to really make use of what he's got onto the board. And that explosive trap, again, if we remember, does not trigger when the minion attacks a minion. So using these 1 health minions left over to trade into stuff that the hunter plays is valuable later on.
Yeah, of course. That means that he won't be able to play his Savannah High main for the exact same reason you just mentioned. And so it turns this weird game, like this weird standoff at the moment, where I'll just keep making stuff, and both, they won't know if there's an Unleash the Hounds. That's something they'll be a bit scared about, going massively wide, but they'll have worked out how they built the deck themselves, and then have a think about whether they think Liquid are playing that. And they didn't see an Unleash. They didn't play an Unleash. They probably haven't got an Unleash.
Yeah, you often see it in this metagame just because it's so good against the Pirate package, and especially if you can't ban Shaman is something, or if you don't expect to be banning Shaman, it's also one of those decisions that probably makes you reconsider playing it. The issue is, like, do you play 1? Do you play 2? Do you rely on explosives solely to get you through? Do you want to play more mid-rangey style? It's not as removal heavy. Instead, you play huge toads on top of everything else. Secret Hunters tend to be very narrow in the way they're built.
All right, Complexity think they're going to win. They think that it doesn't matter that they trigger this trap. They think that they've got enough stuff here to go all the way, because of the fact they can now just deliver all of this into the face if they stop messing around with the traps.
I mean, if you stop messing around with the traps here, yeah, you're pushing 6, and you've got an extra 10 coming up in the form of spells, so you're 3 off lethal. You're doing it pretty much every time, because you're pushing the extra 2 here.
Yeah.
There's really no world in which they're not setting up lethal with that weapon next turn. Because they've got 6 mana, it's enough for Thalnos, Lava Burst, Bolt. So, 2-turn setup, and Team Liquid will probably be losing with their Hunter in that spot.
Just to point out, the play that you highlighted there is the play where complexity really got into this, which is where they didn't put the pirate on the board on turn 4 or turn 3, because they knew the explosive was coming. There wasn't even a trap up at the time, but the weapon hit into the 4 health, giving them the indication there was going to be an explosive trap. So they kept the deck hand in their hand, and now that thing's going to go through for 6 damage and win them the game.
Yeah. And just like that, 5 and 2. Very difficult spot for Team Liquid as they're down to their one last deck. A Warlock deck. We have not seen what it is. We don't know if it's Reno. We don't know if it's Zoo. But, nonetheless, it is their last deck. And they have to get 4 wins with that one deck against the entirety of Complexity's remaining roster. That is going to be a feat if they achieve it.
Yeah, especially when they've got to start off against Shaman. And Sjow, if you're watching this, I told you were going to play Hunter today. At some point.
Oh, you told him?
I told him he was going to play Hunter. He's like, no, I won't play Hunter. It's terrible. He'd totally forgotten he had this coming up.
Well, I mean,
I'm
against
so
Aggro
pleased.
Shaman, you're not exactly super happy to be playing that Reno lock, right? It's not the matchup you want the most, but it's something like, I wouldn't say a coin flip, but the better you are at Reno lock, the better that matchup becomes, right? It's one of those things where at low ranks, people just get destroyed, and they don't find that the deck is particularly good. But at higher ranks, suddenly Aggro Shaman kind of drops off in win rate. Not by a huge amount, but enough that it averages out to like 42, 52-48,
Right.
50-50 effectively. So the edge isn't that big in favor of Shaman. And then after that, the Reno lock has to face off against the remaining decks, which can be favored in many ways, including a mirror match potentially.
Yeah, the Druid was banned, of course. I mentioned earlier that the Druid might be a good one to take down the lot, but that was actually banned out by Liquid.
Right.
Because of the, you've got a choice, Druid, Paladin, or Mage. So, another good bit of ordering there meant that Druid got banned. And Complexity are going to have their own lock, their Mage, and their Paladin are left. Just to beat one Warlock deck. You can't draw Reno that many times in a trot on Kazakus, can you? An Imp Gang boss.
Imp Gang boss is good. Doomsayer.
How many times in a row can you draw those things, Reno?
Yeah,
How
never
many
happening.
times? Could do. They've got to do it 4 games running.
I don't know what's this. Like, this Reno lock has so much work to do. Like, with the Shaman coming up, and you've got the Paladin still in your your lineup that you have to beat as well, which even though it doesn't seem like a big deal, quite is. There's the Mage also left in there, which is a matchup that the Reno Mage can be happy with. If they don't get tempoed out by crazy Drakes and Giants, you're fine. You're okay. You're going to be able to take that Warlock down. So Complexity's got all the options in the world going into this. And they still have a shot at Shaman before they even lose that one.
Just having a look at that gorgeous, gorgeous prize pool. 8 teams, 2 of which qualified for a 48-team qualifier. $5,000 for the winner, 2.5 to second, and $1,500 making third place interesting as well. So plenty on the line here. And if you win that first game, you've got a 3 in 4 chance of getting some of that lovely money.
Well, Team Liquid with the Hellfire, one of the cards that you're happy to get against a Shaman deck, just to stall them. But the issue is that they get the explosive opener. Demon Wrath is a lot more appealing because you take care of the pirates most of the time. The only thing you're not hitting, and that's a big deal, are Feral Spirits and Tunnel Trog, which you also want to take care of. So this Hellfire is definitely a card that's very welcome in Team Liquid's hand.
Open the packs. Oh no, they're going to spectate the Hearthstone. Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
But there's packs, man. Okay, so just sorting out that for you, and we're going to get into this. Shaman, we saw the Mulligan there threw away double Ferals and a couple of other non-aggressive cards, trying desperately to get those pirates. Non-pirate cards. Yeah. And this looks far better if it fills in turn 3 or 4.
Yeah. All right. Spirit Claws on the opener, not the most exciting thing to see when you don't have the follow-up to really make use of it. So we're not even talking about something fancy. We're just looking for something like a pirate or a Tunnel Shrug to get onto this board a little bit quicker.
There you go.
Buccaneer right off the top to salvage what seems to be a bit of an awkward turn.
Yeah, decent looking hand here for Sjow. Imp Gang Boss, Kazakus, Hellfire, 3 cards you really want. A little bit slow, but that's what that deck does. It is a little bit slow. You couldn't ask for much better. Doomsayer would be nice off the top. If you get a Doomsayer off the top here, Liquid would be in a good spot. But
yeah, it's still a very It's still honestly a very good hand to handle what's coming up with the Imp Gang boss and the Hellfire. You're often able to hit the Totem Golem and finish off with Hellfire what's left onto the board. So I like that.
Yeah, complexity with a good hand as well. And Liquid already making the decision how much tap damage can we afford. And to work that out, you've got to work out how good your hand is. They think their hand's good enough, they're not going to take a huge beating, so they can afford to tap and move on with their lives.
All right, now the option is there for complexity to choose the earliest aggression path of Coin Feral Spirit and try to set up damage through Demon Wrath if that were a thing that came out, or to play around something like an Imp Gang boss, because you still play for, Spirit Claws on the following turn, which buffs the Small Time Buccaneer, if that's a thing. Otherwise, Totem Golem, Coin, Spirit Claws is very clean, but you're also surrendering a play on turn 3 where you're only hero powering.
Yeah, the hard bit here is not getting this Spirit Claws down for the Buccaneer, so I think they're going to go with that, or are they just going to wait one more turn?
Yeah, again, it really comes down to how much you value the damage buff, because I don't think in this spot buffing the Buccaneer is the most important thing. It's really being mana efficient that is going to determine what you're able to do with this game.
Jade Lightning. So Jade Lightning's pretty handy in the future.
We could see a Hero Power, Coin, Spirit Claws as a setup for Jade Lightning in the next turn, which is good.
How do the Hero Powers work out? So 1/1 is really bad. Taunt is fantastic. Spell damage is fine.
Yeah.
Healing would actually be okay as well, I think, to allow you to tidy up this. So that's a play they definitely might make.
Coin Feral Spirit opens you up to Hellfire, but you're also playing around it very heavily if you're refusing to make that play. So the consideration is really one of efficiency. How risky is the play that I make here versus the reward? And the reward is often just staying ahead on board against this type of deck. You want to make sure that the AoE doesn't cripple you.
Gotta do something, Yagu. Just watching the complexity players, Cohen was actually still talking there where the rope's going. A lot of teams go quiet when the rope's going and just say, over to you, guy in charge, do what you see. Because things can go so badly wrong in a team event where you're talking to a guy who's roping. You can just do half a play if you're not careful, half of what you see and half of what they've seen, and suddenly you just make a real mess.
So how do you value the play here? Like, do you think we're going to see Mistress of Mixtures after a Demon Wrath to clean up the board? This feels like the simplest play, much better than Hellfire in a spot like this, because Hellfire can pick up some more value later on. And you're still protected against Maelstrom Portal for the time being.
Right, and there's no hurry to kill this Mistress. You're much better off using her as some sort of board control for at least one turn before gaining the 4 health. Obviously, you want that health, but you don't need to have it until you're actually about to die. And this is what you were saying earlier about Shaman being difficult to play. Every single turn has been a case of I want to do these 2 things, but they mess up my future if I do this one.
Yeah, because the coin, they kept the coin up until this point. They had the option of going really, really wide very early and opening themselves up to Hellfire and Demon Wrath and exposing a lot of their hand to being valueless, right? And skipping a turn. But by holding on to the coin, suddenly they might be able to get themselves an Azure Drake, buff up the weapon, get a good trade, and then follow it up with a, turn 5 crazy Feral Spirit, Totem Golem if they want to, followed by a Hero Power play. There's a lot of lines of play that are open to them because they've kept that coin, which would not have been the case had they just gone in.
Yagi almost looks sad there. It's like, oh no, I've got to think even harder next turn. Now I've got a 7/7 for 4. Just because all of these cards are so awkward with this overload, but so powerful. And they're keeping it going pretty well. I think they'd be very happy if they knew there was no read.
1 mana? Do we go for the 1 mana card? Yes, it looks like we are. It looks like we are doing just that. So there's a 3 damage spell in that potion that could be found in order to kill off that Drake while keeping the 2/1 Imp Gang boss alive for 1 extra turn.
2 damage to all minions. So, Not ideal at all, this potion.
Yeah, and you want to get rid of the Drake because otherwise you end up in a spot where the weapon kills your Kazakus and it does not get any value whatsoever. But if you Fell Bloom, then you've given that Kazakus... You've basically killed that Kazakus yourself. But at least you've killed the Drake, so it's a very delicate spot. And I think he's going to be forced into making the clear here. As bad as it feels to lose all those imps.
Yeah, I guess the one that's died this game.
Oh, Imp Gang Boss comes back to life.
That was always going to be good, right? Because Mistress and Mixtures wouldn't have been too bad either. Imp Gang Boss is obviously better, but the 4 health would have been very nice too. Okay. So, Complexity going to have to just build again. But look, we're playing against a Warlock deck who can draw cards for nothing. And Complexity have more cards. Wow. Dr. Zoom.
Oh my god.
I wasn't expecting that. I don't think I was ready for this, Noxious. This isn't what I signed up to.
I was not prepared. Definitely not.
Dr. Zoom. A 7-7 with no friends.
Show's looking good right now in terms of board state. He is forcing some form of answer from the opponent because this is kind of spooky. If your Complexity, seeing that Emperor come down, you have a 7-7, but does it really get to do what it wants? Does it really get to do what it wants?
Does it get to Zoom?
Nope.
And you have to take down Thor-san. You really just have to get rid of it. Because you don't know if they're playing combo or not. You don't know if they're playing... Well, yeah, you just got to get rid of it. It's just too much reduction on a Warlock when they're on 21. And, you know, every chance they've got Reno in their hand.
I mean, pushing face here doesn't really do all that much, frankly, because it doesn't take much for the Warlock to even just taunt up, right? And suddenly you're back to square one. It would be a different story if you could set up a lethal with double Lava Burst Bolt, right? Like if you told me I have double Lava Burst Bolt,
right,
and I'm able to push a 13 damage, you know, do I go face? I would tell you, yeah, okay, you consider it. It feels...
Oh, they're going for it. They're going for it. They've decided that this is the way to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, the Emperor's... Because you give them a trade otherwise. There's no real good, easy way to do this. So they're going to opt for the most aggressive line, which...
And this is the turn before board clears can happen. So if you're going to do it, this is the turn to do it.
With Hellfire being the only one, or a good Shadow Flame to stop you.
Yeah. And Hellfire does a lot of damage to your own face. It means you can't play Reno. And, you know, with Jade Lightning in hand, maybe you feel that you've got some outs as well on top of that.
Yeah, I don't think Team Liquid is very worried here, but Hellfire was the card the Complexity did not want to see.
Yeah.
That was the one card they did not want to see. And now the fear of what Complexity could be holding is what Team Liquid is pondering right now. Do I have to heal? Do I have to taunt? What do I do? Do I tap? Do I not?
Yeah, how far in front are we? Like, do we have to heal our face? Can we be sneaky and heal our imp gang? Can we tap? They're all the things you just said. I just said them in different order. Sounded good, though. Yeah, so healing your own face does make sense here. Do you need to tap? Or do you just develop the Sun Fury, maybe?
With Jiraxxus, maybe you don't worry too much about what's going to happen. I like the taunt up and heal the minion a lot. It's really only weak to mana that the opponent doesn't have, right? Like, I guess Lava Burst Double Bolt would do it, but we're talking about a very fringe case.
And what do you even do here? And Complexity know that with them not healing face, there's a Reno in hand. As it happens, we know it's Jiraxxus, but Complexity will probably read that as Reno. And so you don't even just have the out of Jade Lightning face or something crazy like that. Just, it's such a horrible turn with 5 mana.
Yeah, the Jade isn't doing all that much in this spot.
There's just nothing good can come of this turn. There's no
kind of what
final
Reno Log does, though, right? This is why the matchup is a 50-50, because there are so many ways to stop the Shaman from hitting the face at some point. You've got enough AoEs in the deck that you can stall, and you've got enough ways to taunt up with, you know, Second Rate Bruiser and the Sunfury Protector. You've got enough ways to heal up that you're never at a loss for options to stall. Or at least you're not at a loss of options to stall throughout the game. The only issue is the Shaman have the burn. Because if they have it, it's very difficult to stop them from using it. With the double Lightning Bolt, with the Lava Burst. Some versions, you know, not really anymore, but it was a thing with, you know, the Doomhammer and the double Rockbiter was also a bit of a problem when you had to use your other weapons early.
Yeah, and looking for all the world like it's going to go to 5-4. Spell
Not
damage
yet.
won't
We're
do
not
it.
quite done yet. We're not
I
quite
guess
done.
they could try. What else have they got? So they've got to not die, first of all, this turn, and they've got to set up 1 turn lethal. Does spell damage help them? Spell damage into portal,
They're
maybe?
looking for Maelstrom. They're looking for a good Maelstrom portal turn here. Because they can clean up the board if they want to. Which is what this comes down to, is that they get the board, they set up a Flame Tongue, and they push.
Sure.
You know, if they get a Lava Burst off the top, you know, it's a very different world.
And that's where the Jades are so crucial again. Just having that 1/1 is actually additional 3 damage in a lot of worlds here.
But Liquid does
Yeah.
have a hand that's going to stop this from really doing what they...
Bruiser,
No,
hero
let's
power,
see.
make a 6/6 taunt, probably.
Seems good.
Seems good.
Yeah.
Get
It
through
seems like
that
they took a
lot.
line of play that allowed them sometimes to run away with this.
Yeah, the burn phase plan wasn't going to work, so they tried to clear the board and win with their minions. Maybe the minions could connect twice or something. They would have to make up for the burn they didn't get. Yep. And that annoying Murloc just gives up. Off he goes. And Mr.Yagut has finished for the day with only about 5 wins.
Good enough, right? It's not a 6-0, but it's close enough to warrant it. We did see the Hunter come out of Superjj though, so it's not all Yagut at this point in the game. But he's done now. All his decks have been out. The Rogue was banned, the Shaman was played, and the Warrior was played. So Yagut's decks are all exhausted. Now we're down to JJ with the Warlock that he's got left. The Priest was banned, and Crane has got his Mage and Paladin left up against the Reno Lock. So we got Mage, Paladin, and a Warlock Mirror to come up. So those matchups are matchups where Reno Lock can do it. The Dragon Priest, again, is a deck that you're okay with. You know, if you're the Reno Lock, you're fine with facing off against that. It's not too bad. But we've seen Complexity take it in the ESL Trinity Series. In a bad matchup, the Dragon Priest took the victory anyway. And if you win that, I mean, it's just an extra ego boost.
An extra ego boost. The Priest is actually banned, isn't it? So have to do with the Paladin on this occasion.
And they've got the Warlock, you're right. Complexity is only left with Warlock on JJ's side since the Hunter was banned.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So he's got a 50-50. I mean, you don't mind a 50-50 and then 2 bonus chances before you start. Depends what mage they have brought, but I think both mages are pretty good against Warlock. I think the gap slowly narrowed over time. Like there was a stage where mage just demolished Warlock. I think that was not quite so much now, but I think the mage is still a strong favourite, either variant.
I think something like 55-45 for the Reno Mage, and in the Anyfin matchup, that's very similar than the Reno Mage. So they have 2 matchups coming up that are slightly favored for them with a 10% edge. You know, 55-45 is still a substantial edge to have in any matchup, and they get 2 chances at that on top of the Paladin and the Warlock mirror match. So they're looking good. They're looking good.
That being said, when it was 3-0 and it was Face Warrior playing against Druid and looking like it could go 4-0, Liquid would have taken this chance. Like they do have a chance of winning this match that maybe an hour ago they just didn't think they were going to get. And that came down in part to queuing the 50-50 Hunter match, getting something out of their Hunter. And that, of course, means that the game, the extra 1 win could just be everything.
Yeah. Now, right now, based on the overlay, I'm looking at this, and it seems like the Druid is up for Crane, but from what I was told, the Druid was banned. So
yeah, I was told it was banned as well.
To figure out whether or not the Druid is going to be coming through for Crane, because that is a big game changer, assuming the Druid gets to face off against Reno Lock as opposed to Reno Mage.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see what that does there. Because I was under that impression too. I read the same thing you did, obviously. So one thing's for sure, though, there's still going to be the Paladin and the Warlock. So let's see what ends up getting queued. And I think we'll find out. I think that Complexity are likely to queue the it doesn't matter. The queue order is just something we speculate on because it's interesting at this point, because they've got to win with 1 out of the 3 at any point. But I think they'll try and get it over with quickly so they can all get on with their lives and be rested for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where at this point, it's just going through the motions. Do you want the best score possible, or do you want to meme your opponents down to the last match? And I feel like if only for nerves, you don't want to be taking the bad matchups first, so you take the highest win rate at this point. If you think you've got a crazy edge in the mirror match, then go ahead and queue up that Reno Log by any means. But if the Reno Mage is alive, then you probably want to start with that and then go for Anyfin.
I guess there's another factor in that you want to keep decks hidden. So you might not want, if your mage is available, you might not want to queue the mage. So tomorrow, your semi-final opponents don't know what your mage does.
Sure. I mean,
that's a factor.
The specific variants of that Reno mage could matter a lot. I mean, we say Reno mage, but it could be tempo mage. Right?
That's what I mean. Like with mage, it could just be anything at the moment. So maybe you don't queue the mage until last, just as a way to protect yourself.
I mean, if you've brought tempo mage in your complexity here, you're more than happy with about the way this is going down, right? Because that tempo mage does very well against Reno Lock, thanks to the amount of burn that they're packing in the deck. Even better than Reno mage in many ways, even better than the Ink Master Solia Pyroblast version. So I like the potential, for a tempo mage here.
Just taking their time to work out what they want to do. These team matches are pretty long. Maybe people need a short break there as well. And 5-3. Do you think this is the right format? Do you think best of 11's a good number? It feels about right as a caster.
I mean, one of the things about best of 11s that's awesome, right, is you get to see a bit of everything for the most part.
Right.
On the flip side, it also creates a very predictable ban system where if most people agree that a specific lineup is the way you make it, you stack all your players with Rogue Warrior Shaman and you ban one of these and then you build the rest of your lineup with the same decks, then of course there won't be too much in terms of variation since you have to win with everything. But there's room for heavy counterplay where you pick one deck and you just specialize it to death into being this other archetype, and suddenly it's a different story. And this is the type of environment where you could see heavy control priests that just want to beat one deck.
Yeah, like you're saying, again with the Hunter as well, just make it do something. And it'd be interesting to see how those priests, when we get to see them later on. Of course, it was banned in this matchup, so Liquid were onto that strategy.
Let me think.
It'd be interesting to see exactly what the priests do later in the tournament. We've got 3 more matches for you after this one, guys. Something weird going on there. But yeah, after this one, we still have Luminosity, Tempo Storm, G2, F2K, Team Kraken, and Isuba. Isuba, pretty big organization, I think, across many esports.
And mostly in the Eastern European side of things, Isuba is a lot bigger. All the players that we have today from there are Czech players, so apparently they're all going to be representing. Stensivka not on the team, fortunately. Would have been nice. See the full Czech arsenal.
Full Czech arsenal. Those guys do, of course, travel around Europe, though, playing a lot of the European scene. Looking forward to seeing that. That's a rematch from the qualifying event as well. So Kraken have got a point to prove there. Again, just want to reiterate, that was a 48-team qualifying event with many, many good players. I'm sure last week you saw your Twitter timelines full of good players just saying, oh, we've just been knocked out in round XYZ of the Battle of the Best qualifier. And you probably didn't really know at the time, what was that? But now you know, it's this.
Yeah. Now, back to the format explanation for those of you who might have just tuned in. It's the best of 11, 6 classes are left for each team, and each player will have one of their classes banned. So that means that if you build your lineup according to what you think is best, you can sometimes make sure you play a deck for sure. In the case of most of the teams on the event, we've seen that they stack Rogue, Warrior, and Shaman onto the same player to make sure that only one of these 3 classes gets banned, so at least 2 of them will be able to be played during the event. And Mr.Yagut, with that strategy, ended up getting 3 wins with a Warrior, and on top of that, an extra win with a Shaman at the end. All right, so we were just told that the wrong Paladin deck list was queued up by Complexity, and just like Complexity did earlier to Team Liquid is allowing the rematch to take place instead of taking the default victory. So Complexity is going to go back at this with a new hand in the matchup.
Yeah, can't say anything other than well done, Liquid, for that. I think it's nice to see this game being played in the spirit of competition, of course. Nothing says they have to do that. If teams do decide to take wins in those situations, no one should think any bad of them, but it is nice to see it done.
Yeah, returning the favor, I think, is a pretty big deal. But a lot of Hearthstone players tend to be very...
yeah, we're pretty proud of that in this particular game, I think.
All right, Complexity with a fairly slow start, which is going to let the Reno Lock get everything together.
It is, but
go ahead.
Just keep pressing that button. Soon puts the pressure on if you're not careful. So, Liquid are going to have to just make sure that Complexity don't get to build their hand at will here.
Yeah, one of the big problems for the Reno Lock player, especially if we're talking about a deck list that is running the combo, is making sure the Paladin does not have a way to heal up before you're, pushing the damage of the combo. So you want to have some measure of a board on, to push, let's say, a little bit of damage, and then push the Leroy PO, possibly double PO, assuming the Peddler gives you what you're looking for, and maybe nail the damage that way. Because if you can get the full combo together, it's at least 20 baseline. With Soulfire on top, we're talking 24, and if you've got the second PO, then we're talking about just an OTK. So either you're getting them from 30 down to 0, or you're getting 28 with the second PO, or you're 24 with a Soulfire. And that means that you need to have some damage onto the board established before you pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, and at the moment, the Doomsayer is just going to stop that from happening. They're going to be able to protect their health total. The one thing that Complexity aren't going to be able to do, though, is actually put any pressure on. They don't really have a way of doing that at the moment.
Yeah, there is a way to clean up that Doomsayer with the Shadow Bolt Mortal Coil. It also lets you cycle, incidentally, into your deck a little bit more, which I don't hate. But it depends on how much you think those 1/1s are of a problem. Like, are you happy about them going away? I mean, you do have 10 cards in hand, so you need to dump something. There you go.
Just back up to 30 health, just like that. And choosing to kill a minion, because that means that Solemn Vigil would... Well, it makes no difference. But...
In this case, it makes no difference. Frank
-1.
smiled. He's like, still optimal, but I guess it wouldn't matter. But still a little bit of a smirk here.
Yeah. Cray would appreciate that being played optimally. He's very precise about that sort of thing, so he'll definitely appreciate that.
I could play Finja here, but that means that Sjow does not have any obligation to play big minions into it to feed you some Murlocs.
Right.
Where it's oftentimes better to just guarantee some value later on, where something's played, then you play Finja, and they go, oh crap, now suddenly you have to worry about Murlocs coming out. And Finja accelerates the pace at which this deck puts its combo together by a huge margin. It's effectively drawing you 2 cards and giving you the mana that you would have spent on those cards immediately.
Well, it's interesting, right, because this deck is much more powerful now as a raw baseline because of Finja than it ever was. I mean, it's only really seeing play in team events where you have to play a 6th class.
Yeah, it's also slightly weak because of Finja, where you don't have a guarantee of the big combo being put together, right? Because one of the the combinations you get at the end of a game, right, are either very often, 4 War Leaders and 3 Blue Gills, what ends up being 30 damage, or 4 Blue Gills and 3 War Leaders, which ends up being 32. So you can oftentimes get the OTK either way. But if Finja comes to dilute one of the cards, right, if you get, let's say, 4 War Leaders, 1 Finja, and 2 Blue Gills, then suddenly there's no OTK. You're talking 20 damage, and that's not enough. So Finja does sometimes come to throw a wrench in your plans, and it doesn't make the deck bad, but it's the card that's overall increased consistency, but sometimes completely ruin matches for people.
Yeah, so it speeds up your combo, but what you're saying is that it means that you just don't always win anymore like you would have done before. Okay. Get it?
Yeah.
Most of these cards cost 3 or fewer. That's really strange here for a Reno deck. And Reno decks have had to adapt, of course, to just not get smashed out of the sight by pilots and shamans. So cheaper and cheaper seems to be the way forward.
Yeah, very slow play from both players. Complexity here had a lack of options to buy time. No more Doomsayers. Is going to have to play the Finja to at least get something out onto the board. And because they have the Aldor Peacekeeper, this Finja might stick around. It's one of those spots where it could get recurring value if the opportunity is presented. And you have also good tempo to follow it up with, because you play it now, then you have Aldor True Silver to kill off a lot of the minions that could come up. And you also have the Ragnaros Lightlord as a play on turn 8. So you're never really done with this. And oh my god!
See ya, Finja!
Is Liquid doing this?
Stealing the Finja.
Yeah. Very powerful play again. You want to make sure that combo doesn't happen. And this matchup went from being Paladin favored all of a sudden to a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it's going to be a real nuisance now. And Complexity just going to have to draw on their knowledge of this matchup from previous times where, you want to make the Warlock have to use their Reno whilst not giving up all of your combos. So you need to find a way with fiddly minions to exert pressure.
Well, that's a lot of pressure going for Complexity, who are not really going to be able to do all that much. Sylvanas does find a lot of value in the matchup anyway, if you find a good turn with, Ragnaros, Lightlord, Tyrion Fordring. There are spots where this can be done, but there are no transformation effects in the Warlock deck, which means that you can't stop the combo from occurring at all. It's just impossible unless you steal one of their minions and are able to stop it from doing all that much.
Yeah, so by transformation, you mean like polymorphs and that sort of thing. So the Murlocs are always going to die as Murlocs, especially now that the Sylvanas is gone.
Yeah, no Murlocs in Team Liquid's deck, I'd imagine, so nothing's going to be pulled from this. Simply going to go for value plays here. One War Leader's gone. Oh, there's a Kazakus with Brand that could come up on the next turn. This time
and I think it probably will after this Twilight. Oh, it was going to be a Twilight Dragon decision to make. Do we want a million or do we want an 8/8?
The question is, how likely is a Drake to bait a Aldor Peacekeeper? Because if it is going to bait one, then I'm happy to play it first. That way the Giant stays at full strength. I'd be more inclined to bait removal and, I guess, control onto the Drake before I play the Giant. Then it's a matter of wondering, well, do I want a 4/10 Drake or do I want an 8/8? Does the 8 and 10 matter? Because then it's a health total amount.
Haven't players worried about this particular play since like the dawn of Hearthstone?
Well, it's not as though Paladin and Warlocks were together in the same metagame for multiple games usually. So usually Giant just ends up being the default play, because if you're forcing them to use True Silver on it, then it's great. And if you force them to use Aldor, then oftentimes you're in the same good spot that you were a moment ago.
Quality looking like a good pickup there, just a case of how they want to use it. And if they want to try and survive without it, but it seems like just a good spot to straight up play the equality here. Can just challenge it with the Ragnaros if you want to. That seems like it's dangerous against Siphon Soul.
Yeah, one of the things I like about the 8/8 is how dangerous it is if there is a play like a Faceless and the opponent does not answer your Giant. Like if there's no answer at all to your Giant here, and you feel like playing for the board is your best option, which it rarely ever is. It's almost never correct. This could be the type of way to steal a game.
So actually choosing to use the Aldor here, which obviously takes care of the Giant, but a lot of these Warlocks are playing silence effects now, so slightly risky play, I guess. But it keeps your equality, which is absolutely insanely important.
Yeah, you need to keep that equality for the time where you're going to go for it. Like, because there are the Faceless Shamblers. You did see Sun Fury Protector, so that's a very good thing for you, given that there can't be some huge push at the end of the game with a Twilight Drake and Faceless Shambler, and then you can't go through with your Murlocs. Keeping the equality is at least a failsafe against these nightmare scenarios.
How good is 10 armor in this matchup? Does it get you out? Yes, they've gone for 10 armor.
Oh, it's pretty good in the matchup. It's arguably one of the best.
And Sheep. You said there's no transform effects, but now there are transform effects, Noxious. We've got Sheep instead of Murlocs.
Well, we can use that when the first Anyfin is brought out, because the first Anyfin usually only hits for 12 damage with the 2 blue gills, so you're looking at a way to transform that. If you're still alive afterwards, you're good to go, because there can't be another wave for more than 12. So if you can survive 24, you'll be okay.
Yeah, transforming into Sheep and getting the armor while you're at it seems really helpful.
Another armor play here, if he wants to get it.
He didn't take it, but he took it on the backswing anyway. Yeah, armor's one of those when you're looking at the value of the spells, like in isolation, the armor's probably the worst one. But it's amazing how often you end up taking it and it ends up being good. So complexity on the back foot for a turn or two here.
Yeah, for a few turns, actually. This is the type of spot you just don't want to be in. If that Finja had gotten 2 Murlocs out of your deck, that Anyfin is looking pretty juicy already, on average. But given the way this has progressed, very awkward spot for complexity. And they know that as the hand of the Warlock just expands, they're looking at more and more pressure coming out. And yes, they have a board clear. Yes, they have an 8/8, but there are board clears on the other side as well, so you're really relying on that combo to be put together, and that slowed you down. That Sylvanas play slowed you down. At least the power of overwhelming's out, so there can't be a Leroy massive combo.
The one thing you can do this turn is just True Silver into the Bran, and then next turn maybe set up Pyro Equality, followed by dropping your Ivory Knight. So if the board gets out of hand this turn coming up, you end up with a 4/4 on the board on a clear board. And if it doesn't get out of hand, then you get to look after your quality for a rainy day.
Right. The combo's pretty far away from working out, so I could see just playing it as slowly as possible. I mean, you've seen the PO, and that's a big deal. When Power Overwhelming's out of that deck, that Leroy combo isn't exactly, you know, as worrisome as it was before.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're more interested in stabilizing and worrying about anything anyway. If they combo you, they combo you almost at this point. You can save yourself with Ragnaros as long as they don't have it already.
There could be just a Consecration if you wanted, and then Ivory Knight.
Yeah, I like it.
It's a little bit slower, but you get to keep the valuable Equality and Wild Pyromancer.
Yeah, the 4/4 challenges the 1/4 as well. You make sure you look after that health total just in case.
And the small time recruits is no help. Repentance, not really a card you want unless Jaraxxus comes out. If you're able to snipe that Jaraxxus with Repentance, you'd be golden. Otherwise, it looks like...
Wow. That's hilarious. I don't think I've ever seen that into action.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny thing to see Jaraxxus at the Eridar Lord of Burning Legion come out at 1 health. It's a good feeling. Let's just put it that way.
Does it count as 14 damage? Like, can he be healed, or does he just... Is that his max ever?
Oh no, that's his max health now. The only way to increase it is through another Jaraxxus or an Alexstrasza, if I recall correctly.
That's brilliant. You can also snipe the Twilight Drake as well, so... Not a complete disaster. They've actually gone with it just as, like, a feeder spell for this Pyromancer here.
Sure, that's fine enough. And I mean, if it somehow does something more, then all the better. But you're not banking on that happening. It's good against Twilight Drake. It's really good against a Twilight Drake. So it's gonna find some form of value either way, because you're gonna be able to clean up the board with what you have already. All right, that's a 4-1. Played at full cost. I imagine you'd like to Shadow Bolt in this spot.
Yeah.
Or do you want to let the value trades happen? Not the value trades, but just the trades.
I mean, what's their game plan here? Is it to just wait and make sure they don't take any damage, or is it to actually try and exert some pressure? Are they in a hurry at any point here? I don't think they are.
Well, they've lost the PO, right? So they're still looking to close out the game at some point through a massive board swing. And they can't let the Paladin take their time, because they're the ones who are going to kill them in one turn. Because the combo potential of the Warlock deck has diminished by quite a big margin.
Yeah, it's still drawn more cards as well, so which is unusual against Paladin. These are the games where these guys earn their money. There's so little going on for complexity, but that can change so quickly if they ever actually draw some Murlocs. Like, I don't believe they've drawn a single one yet.
They've drawn one War Leader so far.
One War Leader, one Finja.
Right. So the worst part about this is that Finja might dilute the value of their anything can happen, and they didn't even get to do anything with it, aside from deny a combo play, potentially from Team Liquid, if they're running it in their deck. With the Faceless, seems very reasonable to assume so. You saw Team Liquid just laugh, you know, as they played Sylvanas and PO, like, I can't believe we're doing this. I guess we're stealing that Murloc. All right, screw this. Let's take
that card that looks like a joke card when you look through the spoiler. Like, before you really start processing in your head what the card's going to do, you go, Finja, joke stealth Murloc, move on. And then you realise actually it does something.
So there's a Consecration play that's not bad with Solemn Vigil, but again, it's not... The problem with that play is that you're really throwing away your Equality Consec, which you decided to hold on to when you play the Wild Pyromancer. So again, like, this game plan can still go on for quite a while. You've got some health gain. You haven't seen Blast Crystal, you haven't seen Siphon Soul. So you're waiting to see exactly where the removal is for Team Liquid. You don't anticipate this Rag will live, but if it does, all the better.
That Blast Crystal was so good, of course. On turn 10 onwards, it just doesn't have a downside. Fantastic card. Late in the game, obviously completely useless early in the game most of the time.
And now at 10 cards, Team Liquid has to play something.
They've been a little bit stuck all the way through this game in terms of having too many cards in hand.
Well, the Kazakh's brand definitely didn't help. Their hand is full case, but
even before that, they sort of had to dump some cards to set that up as well. Obviously, they needed that brand Kazaka, so you can't turn it down, but it's just been their one ongoing issue in this game, having too many cards. It's been a nice problem to have.
Yeah, now Complexity still has about a turn or two of relative safety before they have to worry about cleaning up the board. Although there is on the board 8 damage, and if you're assuming there's Leroy plus Faceless, that's already 12. With Soulfire, that's 16. So you're 2 off of lethal, assuming you let that happen.
Yeah, so this will be the turn where they have to draw and set up not dying from every turn onwards. On top of that, they've still got the issues of, you know, where are my Murlocs?
I like the Acolyte of Pain, obviously. It's going to force a trade or removal piece from Sjow. And the Hellfire's picked up, so there's actually... We're basically on lethal here, right? Leroy Faceless represents 12. We've got Hellfire with Soulfire. So over 2 turns, there could be a lethal setup. And it's just a matter of finding a way to squeeze it in. It's going to be very difficult since you anticipate there is a forbidden healing. And you don't expect this to really work the first time you push it. But you can set it up with the potions you've got.
Yeah, and this is the question that they'll be asking now. You can see Sjow sort of in thinking mode. How much damage do we want to do to force that forbidden healing out without giving away the fact we've got so much win in hand? And can we sneakily just win it without letting them heal? Can we put them onto a number where we win next turn and they never heal? And this looks like a way of doing that.
Yeah, that's what they want to do, but I'm sure Complexity is reading into this more than Liquid wants to. But no forbidden healing, so this Ivory Knight looks like the only source of healing at the moment. There could be a board clear, of course, with the Wild Pyro Equality or the Equality Consec, depending on what they choose. I like, of course, just getting that Equality out there since you get to play the Ivory Knight alone, as we mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah, this play looked like a play they were going to make some time ago. That was the turn where they ended up playing the Secret instead, or around that time. And yeah, they finally get this play off. And the Murloc's still not really helping them out much in terms of getting this double anything going.
Yeah, they need to draw more. And it's interesting to see them pick up Hammer of Wrath, because we've seen Hammer of Wrath be played in legitimate decks as an actual inclusion in the core deck list. So anything can happen as a way to cycle very quickly.
Yep. Yeah, good pick up there. I'm laughing because it was said with such scorn. We've actually seen Hammer of Wrath played in decks. Like,
but it's so true. It's so surprising to me. I don't mind the card. I love it because it's such a classic Paladin card. But I mean, the fact that it made it to deck lists on ladder for this deck was so amusing to me initially. I feel like we've scaled back on it though. Quite a lot. People have gone back to more traditional lists. But the card is still available when people need, cycle heavy decks to exist against a Reno metagame.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of work as well. So it's a card that I don't think is going to go anywhere fast. We'll be using it over and again. It'll come in and out of metagames as required in slow metas, I think. Killing a thing and drawing a card is always good.
Keeps life tapping. What's interesting too is that Jiraxis right now is looking like a card you can play on its own. If you're looking at this from the perspective of Liquid, because there hasn't been any Murloc play at all, ever, yet. So if you're able to close out the game on the back of a Leroy, follow-up, this is something you might...
I think Cray's just seen this. I think he may play the Murlocs here, so they get blown up, so they don't get polymorphed. Because those 2 Kazakus potions have sat in hand forever. Complexity are probably well aware what they are. So a chance to actually kill off your own Murlocs might not be the worst thing here.
Might not be the worst. I think it's one of the best, actually, now that you mention it. It's one of the cleanest ways to get those Murlocs into the anything can happen.
Yeah, into it and not polymorph in the process. Yeah, Crane sees it, he likes it. And suddenly, from nowhere as well, Liquid are down to 8 without having Reno in their hand.
They do have Reno. It's on the far right next to Soulfire.
Sorry, everything's backwards, yeah. Sorry, my bad. Because it costs 5 and it's on the other side. All right.
So they can Reno here if they choose to, but I believe we're going to see Jiraxis to set up the lethal. As I mentioned, they really need to get the Leroy in with the Soulfire, with the Faceless. That's representing 16 damage with Jiraxis. That's 19 and 22 with the second attack. So if there's no healing here for Complexity, this is going to be game over next turn.
And Crane does not like it, but there's Tyrion. Does that help enough? Surely.
There's a polymorph effect in Team Liquid's hand, so... they could just turn this into a polymorph effect, and they only have 1 Bluegill and 2 War Leaders into their Anything Can Happen alongside a Finja. That's really only pushing 6 damage. They're pretty far off from doing this. They have to just commit. I think they just have to hope that this works, because they know there's a polymorph effect in one of these 2 potions, more likely than not. And that Bluegill has to be the champion for Complexity.
He's another Zoom.
And that's going to be it. Team Liquid will be able to take up the game after that Finja steal slowed down Complexity tremendously. And patient as ever, Team Liquid ended up taking it in the match. So there's a potential equalization there. Team Liquid, one more win with this Warlock would do it. And that was a good matchup for the Paladin player by a small margin.
Yeah, and it turned out that that early play of power overwhelming their own Sylvanas
Paid off.
Worked. It paid off. They didn't need that. It made the end game awkward for them. They could have won it a long time ago if that hadn't been the case, but it doesn't matter when you win as long as you win.
Yeah, it was a very well piloted. I mean, this was a very interesting line of play, right? When we saw Sylvanas, I see PO, I want to combo my opponent, but they know that their deck is slower at putting stuff together than the Paladin if the Finja's on the board. So you have to respect the fact that this deck is going to eventually kill you if you give it too quick of a ramp up to the Murloc combo. And very well, piloted by Team Liquid. They had to dig a lot for all those damage pieces, right? They got the Emperor. It was very well set up, hit the Faceless. It hit the Soulfire. So all these pieces were discounted. They picked up Jiraxxus very late in their deck and then saw that they just had to go through with it. If there's healing, then too bad. If they forbidden healing, we can't help it. But we have to commit to a game plan here that wins the game.
Yeah, and to win the game, it didn't. Win the game, it did for Liquid. Win the game, it didn't for Complexity. They knew what the score was there, but with no choices to make, they just had to go for it and hope it worked out. Yeah, and 5 games to 4. And we will find out what that other deck is as well, whether it's going to be the Druid or the Mage. We're not quite sure which was banned out of those two.
From what I was told by the admins, the info we got, the intel we were given was correct. The Druid is indeed banned, and the Mage is going through. So the Mage we might see as Tempo Mage against the Reno Lock is a potential up-and-coming matchup.
And we're just assuming that the other deck is pretty much a mirror. The only question is always combo or no combo. Right. When you play those mirror decks, that's the first thing you look for. But other than that, it'll be a mirror of some sort. And so still in Complexity's hands, but 5-4. When this was 3-0, it was Warrior versus Druid. Didn't look at all good for Liquid, but they're in it.
Yeah, I feel like weeks ago, we were looking at Reno Lock as one of those decks that, hey, it started off really well in the expansion, and it kind of fell off the train as people started playing more aggressive decks, and Reno Lock didn't seem to line up against them as well as Reno Mage, and so the deck dipped in popularity, but in this setup, it's actually amazing.
Yeah, because there's so much more control going on, you can ban things, you can manipulate the format to your liking. I think that there's just not enough aggro decks to keep it completely under control. And Reno's really, really good. If you're playing control versus control and you're drawing twice as many cards as your opponent, that seems good.
Yeah, which is also one of the reasons why you bring it, at the very end. When the Shamans won and you've managed to somehow get it out of the way, when the Warriors won on the opponent's side and you've managed to finally finish it off with something else, then Reno Lock comes out and says, okay, now control decks, we can handle this if I run the combo list. Unfortunately, a lot of the combo less lists that were run at the time during a certain portion of the metagame were a little bit weaker to the mirror control because, Reno Mage came up, said, okay, you're playing for board, I'll freeze it, no problem, and I'll just punch you in the face repeatedly with Ink Master Solia Pyroblast plays, which made the whole ordeal a little bit more difficult.
And I think that in this matchup, the Mage was originally a big favourite because the Mage side was a little bit easier to learn. And the Reno side has slowly been learned. There's tricks you can do with, the potions costing 1 onto your Jiraxxus, that sort of thing, to give him some bit of armour. Various other bits and pieces. And slowly but surely, the percentages come down, and this is getting really close to 50-50 these days.
It's given really an edge to the players who were familiar with Handlock a long time ago, whereas the Reno Mage plays a lot like Freeze Mage, at least the more traditional versions do. Like this one that we see from Complexity, right? Like this, I don't know if they're running the cycle heavy. Oh, Spectator mode is glitched again. Yay, that's awesome. I like it. I love Spectator mode in Hearthstone.
We can make up our own game from here, I think.
But I feel like somebody played Refreshment Vendor, but I see 2 mana as maximum. So I don't know exactly what ended up happening there.
That Shadow Bolt looks good value, though. 1 mana, kill nothing, because there's nothing in play.
Shadow Bolt face.
Shadow Bolt face for 1.
Yeah, seems balanced. Soulfire. Yeah, well, hopefully the admins restart this and then we'll be going back into the game. But I was talking about Reno Mage and how the traditional lists run some people didn't run Ink Master Solia. She also went in and out of the deck for a while, and then was brought back with a Pyroblast variant with more damage.
Right, they responded to that by like dropping Jiraxis or playing Jiraxis a lot less.
Yeah.
And then they took out the Soliers, and then Jiraxis came back, stuff like that.
Interesting.
And
I mean, we're missing basically the entire game at this point, which is unfortunate because the early turns of like seeing what was used up really matters. We saw Coin Emperor, so they're on turn 5.
yeah, Azure was played,
gathered
and then
information.
Azure was played into Coin Emperor, so both teams are comfortable with. Yeah, they've got their development going. Which, if both teams are still, if the board is in a level state when we get back to it, that favours the mage. The Warlock is kind of the aggro, sadly enough, in this matchup.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's also some nuances where the combo is, against Ice Block, a little bit difficult to nail, but it's very difficult for the Warlock to stabilize if the Mage gets the Tempo Hands, because they both run a bunch of Tempo cards. One of the decks that was popularized in Reno Mage was the cycled version, I think, that Rage put together with Novice Engineer, Loot Hoarder, Acolyte of Pain, and they played all the draw as a way to just dig through their deck, be a pseudo-Warlock, really, except they have Ice Block on top. And that list, although popular, had less potential for tempo advantage, and it was more combo focused at the end.
One of the key things here to note is that Complexity haven't had to use their Fireball or their Frostbolt, which means that they're well on the way if they've got an Ice Lance, which they probably have, to just being able to OTK a Jiraxis at some point later in the game, maybe after they thaw some. The Warlock's job is to force that removal to go onto minions where possible. And they don't seem to manage to do that so far. And obviously, the thing I didn't point out, but is also obvious, is Complexity managed to build up a really good board here. So we might just see Inkmaster into Fireland's face here. Say, deal with that. If you want to Reno it, I'm just going to hit you in the face for a whole bunch more next turn. That's exactly what we're going to see.
Is no place for
so yeah, if they play Reno, they just instantly take back up to, I don't know, 14 on the board on the backswing.
Yeah, the flip side, though, is that they do need to get the Twisting Nether out on the board right away, which is going to help. They've got the combo set up in hand already, right? They've got the Faceless, they've got the Leroy, they've got the PO, they've got the Soulfire. They've got the full combo. They've actually got the absolute full 24 damage combo. The issue is how long they have to do it.
So next turn they're going to have to Nether. What's going to happen here is I think Reno might even get polymorphed here. Because Nether's kind of the owner.
Tempo?
Yeah.
I mean, you could also just see Torch cycled.
Yeah, that's probably...
with that polymorph as well, I guess.
That's better. I like that. Although it is more burn.
Yeah.
No, you're right. We don't want to... Probably keep the polymorph for a taunt later in the game. So you're right. We'll probably see the Torch cycled.
I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's definitely an okay turn to polymorph for tempo, because it looks like the Warlock's struggling, and the only way he gets out of this is if he actually hit the Nether with the Emperor. So you're looking at that one scenario where things go wrong. I like the polymorph a lot, but then the question is, do you ping to make sure there's no, shenanigans with Shadow Flame, or do you torch?
Yeah, they decide to ping. They've got 12 damage in hand, so yeah, this Nether. We're going to see one of these two minions played as a tempo minion, oddly.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think you're playing a Mistress of Mixtures.
Did you just play them both? In the world's saddest Hearthstone turn?
I actually don't mind it, because if you get to connect with one of them, I mean, you're 1 mana off of lethal if Bran is the one that connects, and you're giving them Siphon Soul targets, so maybe you just play for the ping, Forgotten Torch ping pass.
Interesting.
Know what I mean? Like, you just...
Yeah, that's what real people would do.
Yeah.
That's what real people would do, and then just start picking up more damage.
There's also the matter of Jiraxis being in the back of your mind as a potential way to come back.
Right, and
So
then if you
really
can get
have
your
to use
6
that
mana
benefit.
torch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can ever get your 6 mana torch in your hand, you're going to have 15 in hand for the rest of the game to just completely shut down Jiraxis.
Yeah. I like the tempo Reno. I like the Forgotten Torch. But I don't think Bran is necessary in that spot. The issue is you still need to play for the long game if there's a long game, coming up at any point. And this is a lot more likely to close out the game next turn. Because you've got a Torch in your deck that also gives you lethal right away, suddenly. Whereas if you play Brand and Reno, you throw away 2 minions. You know, one of them gets killed. Brand doesn't give you lethal anyway.
Yeah, you've got the Kazakus obviously for later as well. Now, I mean, I was just wondering if it worked out. Like you say, it was actually short of being a lethal setup, which makes it a lot less enjoyable.
Oh wow! Okay, this is the value version of that major list, but this is gonna be a really troublesome spot.
This makes a lot more sense in this format than it does on ladder to me. I don't particularly rate Medivh, but in this control meta we've got in these team tournaments, then I think Medivh's a lot stronger.
Sure, I mean it's meant to be a value card, right? Medivh is effectively another way to win the game that does not revolve around the Pyroblast, Inkmaster, Solya, and it's instead just trying to make use of those flame strikes and those blizzards as extra tools to close.
You've got to frostbolt the giant or you're dead, right? Are they dead anyway? Are they one-off lethal here?
There is no way to use the Leroy and the Faceless, but the Power Overwhelming and the Soulfire.
Oh, they're not reduced. Sorry, yeah, I just forgot they weren't reduced. I'm just looking at the wrong half of the hand.
Yeah, all the stuff that was reduced was the one mana spells, so you can't really pull the trigger on turn 9.
So one more turn.
Shadow Flame's still a big deal, but nowhere in sight for Team Liquid.
And complexity would be crazy, unless they absolutely can, to play around this, by the way. If it comes up to a situation where, hey, they probably haven't got all the combo, they will take the view that one of those pieces of combo has got to be in that bottom 18 or 20 cards, because why wouldn't it be?
So how do you feel about a Sylvanas, Power Overwhelming, trade into the 3-2, Soulfire Reno, steal the 7-7? I guess Demon Wrath works the same way, and you get to keep your Soulfire.
I have no time for games.
Yeah, they're going to do the same thing
as
before.
Right, you know there's no more damage coming up, realistically, and you can win with that Giant. If it took a Frostbolt and didn't die, the worst case scenario you run into here is a Flame Strike Ping, which would be unfortunate.
Oh, wow. Yeah, 16 plus 15 is 31 if it comes to that next turn. 16 in hand, 15 on the board.
Complexity is going to be forced to use that Fireball onto the minions at this point. There's a real chance Team Liquid equalizes. This is amazing. I can't believe this. We have to keep watching whether or not this game is going to end in their favor, but they've got to be feeling a little bit better now, seeing how well this Reno Log's been performing.
Okay, so they make the right play that stops them from dying by using the Fireball, but that's one of their ways to win the game. The Fireball is mega important in winning this game. It's 15 damage now can't be done in one turn. Well, not without help of minions, obviously.
Now, Jiraxis could come out, but I don't think there's any rush for that yet. There is time. Let's wait until we're a bit lower. Because one of the big worries at this point for Sjow is obviously only Pyroblast, right? That's the one card that he's deathly worried about, as it is the only piece of burn that he hasn't seen aside from the Roaring Torch. So we have to see how much he values getting the tempo with Jiraxis, because he gets a free Infernal and a Soulfire, and he keeps Leroy and Faceless potentially.
Yeah.
It's down to Pyroblast.
They go for it. They just decided this is fine.
We're down to Pyroblast in Complexity side. On Complexity side.
Down to Pyroblast, and we're in a situation where Liquid aren't going to let it matter. Right, unless the Pyroblast makes something good, which obviously it can with the Medivh weapon in hand.
Right, but 10 mana usually doesn't spawn much of consequence. Right, because all you get doesn't have charge, unless you get, I guess, Eyes Howl, but, you know, it's on turn 9.
Right. And this is looking like it's going to go to 5-5. Didn't look like that at all earlier on. It nearly looked like 4-0 and a walkover for Complexity. And this could well come down to a mirror match.
At least the Ooze is going to stall some of the damage that was dealt. But huge amount of pressure coming from Team Liquid with the Infernals turn after turn. It's just never ending.
Shadow Flame if they want to clear things up here as well.
Yeah, Shambler, Shadow Flame, or Infernal Shadow Flame for the simplest possible, most elegant way to clean up. You do whatever you want at this point.
Yeah, they're just going to hit you in the face for loads of damage to set up lethal.
Alright, we're down to Babbling Book Sacrificial Pack, ladies and gents. That's not it. Wait, there's a Wolf Rider in that Roaring Torch, right?
There is.
Once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon.
No.
Not today. Checkmate, says Complexity. And the 5-5 mark has been reached. Sjow piloting this Reno lock much, much better, I am sure, than he anticipated it would go. Now we're down to a Reno mirror match, which is arguably one of the most difficult matchups because it's very lopsided in the favor of the guy who plays the combo.
Yep.
Which isn't always the case. Not every single player chooses to include it in their deck. I would expect that both teams would, given when and where you want to play the Warlock in this type of format, which is usually against those control decks, and you want to snipe them with that combo approach, as opposed to playing the board-centric one.
Yeah, well, we know for a fact that Liquid are playing it, so the advantage is in their court, kind of by default, until we see the information otherwise. But yeah, Sjow's just beaten Shaman, Paladin, and Mage all in a row with that deck. Now he's just got to win the mirror. He must feel pretty good about things right now.
Yeah, we've got... I mean, it's one of these really odd spots where it all came down to that Shaman being killed, right? When Sjow took the Shaman down, it was a big victory. When Sjow took the Paladin down, it was an amazing victory. When the Mage goes down, these are like 3 matchups in a row where you're not exactly amazingly favored, and yet he's making it out of the gauntlet. Now, is he going to fall down to an exact mirror match? That's when it would be crippling, where you've just made it through this gauntlet
of the hard stuff.
45s where it's all bad against you, and then suddenly that exact 50-50 is where things go wrong. We'll have to see.
It is still only a 50-50. There's always that temptation to believe, oh, he's won all these games in a row, he must be massive favourite. No, it's still just 50-50 now. And it will probably come down to if both sides play really, really good Hearthstone, because a mistake in this matchup can just cost you it straight away. It can snowball so badly. Yeah,
and again, the combo is such a big... You get to kill your opponent in a one fell swoop if you have everything together, whereas the opponent's Reno lock, if he's still life tapping for those combo pieces, is going to be getting his own health total down, thus making your combo that much more potent.
Yeah, and that's why having the combo in your deck is so important. It's not that you almost never do you actually win with the combo. It just means your opponents have to play their cards inefficiently, so you can't kill them with it. So you can't afford to drop below 20 after a certain number of turns when you feel they've got it in their hand. As soon as they play Emperor, you sort of have to start tiptoeing about.
Yeah, you start getting very worried about everything that they're holding in their hand. Every single card draw makes you reconsider what exactly you're going to have to be doing. And their plays suddenly shift. Once they have the combo, you can tell that they're setting up for it, where they're trying to get just enough damage on the board, trying to connect once with a minion. That just gives it away.
Yeah, and what you want to do if you really possibly can, but it's almost... is get down that Jiraxxus whilst having some sort of taunt on the board, and then the next turn you want to get 10 armor and just go, okay, combo this. I need to make 6/6s and not die, and you're in trouble. But it's so hard to set up that situation.
Yeah, Jiraxxus is really difficult to use in the matchup if there's a combo mirror match, unless you've got a very low cost Sun Fury Protector.
Yeah. Yeah, and people are starting to play that again. That card drifted out for a short time, but don't know why it just did. But it's in every single deck again now, of course.
Yeah, I mean, Sun Fury Protector is just a guarantee against aggro to stall what their game plan is, and it's especially useful when you're playing the Faceless Shambler, where you don't need the one Faceless Shambler on top of it all, right? Like, you don't have that one card that saves you. You have the Sun Fury or the Shambler, and they both work very, very well. And if you get the Sun Fury down to low cost, let's say for whatever reason you're able to get that Emperor to tick twice. There have been games where we see Jiraxxus being used with Hero Power, with the immediate taunt up, and that makes it amazing.
Yeah, to see if either side can do that. Neither side... I was going to say neither side have it, but actually I'm just looking at Liquid's hand, and it is insane. They've got the 2 things you really want at the start of this, which is the 4 drops. Those 4 drops put down the pressure, which means that the other side have to start burning stuff. And to follow it up, he's got Kazakus and Emperor looking really good in the very early stages here for Liquid. But of course, this life tap can change things in a hurry, and there's a confirmation there's almost certainly combo in the deck. Yeah,
both decks probably running the same combo of Leroy Jenkins, Power Overwhelming, and Faceless for a total of 20 damage. So that health total is going to have to be monitored very cautiously by both sides. But being on the coin in the matchup is a little bit tough if you're not, because you're not able to dictate the first tempo play that's going to be made. So they know now, Complexity knows now that next turn there could be a Giant, there could be a Drake. They don't have Blast Crystal Potion, so they have to find a way to deal with the minion that come up. As they do, you really just can't afford tapping in this spot, and it's scary because you don't want to skip a tap over your opponent, but you also can't afford giving them an 8/8 without you having an answer onto the board.
The eternal question yet again. Do we play the Twilight Drake? Do we play the Giant? And
So many
nice problem to have, going with the huge Twilight Drake to absorb a load of stuff, and could well follow up with a Giant next turn. And really, Complexity don't have a clear answer to this right now.
Yeah, the Drake is a bit more resilient to one of the few answers in the deck. You know, Shadow Bolt, Mortal Coil kills the Giant. Drake doesn't die to that. They both died to Blast Crystal Potion. Not exactly a good time to use Blast Crystal at any point, and that means that oftentimes you're forcing your opponent to just extend onto the board a little bit more, which makes your AoE more valuable, which then means that your Drake gets to stick around and chip away at their health total, while also taking minion trades in the process, while you develop, in this case, a Mountain Giant behind it. This is really difficult to get out of in the mirror match when you're the one responding.
Yeah, the first thing you've got to do if you're responding is decide whether you need to respond to the Giant or let it go as well. You know, can we risk, if they've got a Giant, do we just lose, or what do we have to deal with? Okay, so they're going to get the Mystic Wall, could be good here for them.
That's a kind of a Hail Mary, but they had to pitch Kazakus in that spot. This is where you want to be life tapping into the mid game and do other stuff than this, but this is alright. They do get a 5/5 demon on top of that, or the 5 damage to deal with a minion. So if they pick up Heart of Fire and they find a way to chip away at that last point of health on the Drake, they could technically guarantee a trade on both minions.
Right, and I imagine that's what they did, but I can't swear to it. And that's their Kazaka's gone. Like, it hasn't been able to be used with Bran. And again, this early pressure from Liquid, that just means that they're going to be able to use their Kazakas more efficiently.
I mean, summon 2 minions died this game and give your minions +4 health. They're going for the board play. They're going for a way for them to solidify their board as opposed to killing stuff and transforming it, because they didn't play around the Giant, as it made very little sense to play around that one out.
Yeah, just having an issue with the spectate again here. There we go, we're back. Okay. And so, yeah, JJ is going to have to use up that entire potion, I think. And
well, all it does is resurrect minions at this point, right? Like, how comfortable are you playing into it?
Just going to come back on while we wait to sort out the spectator problem there. 5/5 and looking incredibly good for Liquid at this point.
Yeah, they have the board advantage. They've got combo pieces in hand. So does Complexity, but they're up against a much more difficult problem, which is immediate, and that means their health total could be chipped at in a very difficult way. You can't recover from it. Second Wave Bruiser coming here, hoping to chip away some of the health from these minions. There's a good chance that Team Liquid just go Siphon Soul, punch you for 12. Your move.
And that's almost exactly what I think they're going to do. Might punch you for 8 and kill your 3/3 if you feel like it, just to protect from any... Oh, they know there isn't any power overwhelming shenanigans, so they don't need to protect it, I guess.
Well, there could have been a power overwhelming, Shadow Flame, but we're talking about a combo piece that's gone in the mirror match. That would probably be
nice.
Range of acceptable outcomes for you.
On top of the Kazakus already having been forced to be used to just 1 5-drop potion as well.
Right, which means you can then win the value game on the back of Brand Kazakus of your own, or win through the combo. So you've got all the avenues open to you if that Shadow Flame comes up. You've got the Emperor to follow this up with. If you're Team Liquid right now, you're feeling very, very confident, I think.
Yeah, and what a comeback this is going to be if they complete it. And just as spoiled for, choice again. Emperor's also an option here. Just reduce this. They're trying to work out if the Siphon will get them over the line.
Okay, they're going to keep Siphon Soul to make sure if a big minion comes out, they have an answer. And in this case, they will simply keep the Giant as healthy as they possibly can. Will take the value trade. With this line of play, I think you do want to keep the health of the Giant as high as you possibly can. Other lines of play did not force it to be a thing.
And this game could still go on for a very long time and result in a Liquid win, where they're just not only exerting this pressure, but they're just winning the value game in small chunks. They're going to play their Thaurissan at will, they're going to play the Kazakus at will. But they do have to be a little tiny bit careful of their health total, because this time they haven't got Reno in their hand.
Complexity right now is also looking at this from the perspective of, hey, we can pay 5 mana and likely get a second-rate Bruiser, right? If we want to.
Yeah.
Or we can play the Abyssal and contest the Giant 1-for-1. And worst-case scenario, even if we don't get to kill this Giant with our Abyssal, we have Shadow Bolt on the following turn, followed by Doomslayer to stall the opponent, then we Reno, and then we're back into this game because we can start life tapping again. So, lots of little nuances here to be noticed. Really, really liking the way this game is going.
Yeah, and they're being very, very aggressive with their health total, knowing that they've got their own Reno in hand. So, yeah, they could say to Liquid, keep coming. We're going to tidy up the board. We're going to kill these big minions, and then we're going to Reno, and we're going to at least have a fighting chance in this game that's been really difficult so far.
I mean, let's put it this way. Team Liquid's at 15 health. They're also not feeling too easy about, letting damage come in, but the mana count isn't exactly something Complexity can do much with. When you're looking at 7 mana, there's no combo that's going to kill you right off the top. So you might be inclined to let that damage sink in. You're only dead to Leroy and power overwhelming shenanigans, assuming everything goes really, really wrong. And even then, if you take that trade, you're golden.
Okay, so you're not about getting 2 ticks on the Emperor. It's a thing that can happen. Okay, second part of the combo comes to hand.
Still no kill in hand. Sjow. I mean, there is a lot of damage being potentially pushed by Team Liquid. They've got the Emperor for 5, they've got Bran, Abyssal Enforcer for 6, and Soulfire for a total of 15. So they could set up a lethal in a creative way if it shows up. If they really want to.
What do Complexity want to do here? Well, facing your opponent's Emperor does not seem ideal. They're so close to their own lethal in terms of damage in hand. Obviously, there's a long way to go in terms of mana.
I think there's a world in which your Doomslayer definitely comes down this turn just to guarantee you're not completely out of a win. Your hand just doesn't seem like it contains minions you want to play this turn, aside from potentially the Kazakus Potion. Kazakus Potion with Ooze to just develop onto the board as much as you can, going wide and setting up some form of counter kill. Because you buff that Ooze with +4 health and you get 2 minions off the top. This seems like the most likely way to win the game. We'll see, though, if this gets them anywhere.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's... Obviously, I like it. There's 3 of the best players in the world decided to do it. Of course, but it's one of the plays that gives them a chance to get back into it. Obviously, they don't want to play that Ooze, knowing that later on there's dual access, and bit by bit they're having to do things they don't want to do.
Yeah, so very good foresight by Complexity here. Instead of going for the polymorph play to try to remove some of the mid-game pushes that would have been done by Team Liquid, going for the board presence play, which forces the opponent to not be able to respond, and then you can chip in with some minions and finish them off with a combo kill. Very, very good decision by them, as they actually are able potentially to set up some form of counter kill here. They've got 9 on board and they've got 6 in hand. That's lethal, and we're not talking about extra damage potentially coming out of the top of the deck.
Yeah. Push this health total so far. Okay, here's a whole bunch more damage, and now he's going to just do that lethal setup you're talking about.
Yeah, we're done. We're gonna go for the Shadow Flame here, try to make sure we don't get too punished. Still 1-off lethal there for Team Liquid. If they have Bran and the Infernal and the Soulfire, it's not quite enough. And Complexity does get a free turn. They get a free turn in that spot. If they life tap, they don't know it, but they're dead. They have to consider maybe tapping and renoing just to make sure they don't get killed. But they need 2 more turns and they win.
Yeah, they've used this Doomsayer effectively here because it pretty much forces Complexity to Reno, I think.
Yeah, it really worries them because it looks like you're trying to buy yourself a turn on the back of an Emperor play, where you discounted one thing. Except if they've kept track, they know that all the cards are discounted. So if there had been a combo, it could have been played last turn, right? Where you just play everything and win the game.
So, yeah, it's worked though. It's managed to kill the Reno off at least. So, game stabilizing a little bit here for Complexity through the use of that potion. Really cleverly done. And now it's up to Liquid to see if they can actually not die.
Yeah, I mean, that's a relief. Getting the Kazakus out here with the Brand, getting the initiative on that play, getting a 5-mana potion they can use for the following turn if they want 2 of those.
The Vendor's going to gain them 8 health to get them out of disaster range as well.
Yeah, Refreshment Vendor, again, another card you're happy to play with.
It's worked well for them, right? They forced the Reno down to kill itself, and now they're going to heal just themselves and not their opponent. Really well worked.
Yeah, Complexity is going to rely on that combo combination. Like, they're going to rely on all the combo pieces coming together in one big turn. Otherwise, they're going to be falling behind quite a bit. This game could still go on pretty long depending on what the draws for Team Liquid are. If they start getting combo pieces, very different world. But otherwise, I like where they're going with this. 5/5 Demon, again, another big play. putting down pressure, putting a board. We saw how effective Complexity was at doing that and how much pressure it put on Team Liquid. Favors returned right now.
Yeah, they've got the bigger hand, although obviously we know that there's 2 strong potions in the hand of Liquid. Didn't see exactly what they were, but still plenty of stuff they can do with that.
I believe they took a 5/5 demon as well as a 7 armor at some point.
Okay. It's always handy if you do get your Jiraxis down and established. Long way before that happens, though. This game is really reset in a hurry.
Okay, another piece of removal for Complexity is going to be picked up for later. There's the potential Demon Wrath coil into Shadow Bolt, picking up a decent chunk of the board. You could play Doomsayer alternatively if you're really desperate. This card right here, this could be the golden ticket. If it pulls the right minion at the right time.
The golden ticket 2-drop. Don't see it as much as we did maybe 3 weeks ago. Been dropped for 1 or 2 decks, I feel.
Right, we've seen less of Dirty Rat because I feel like at least on ladder the metagame has stabilized towards more of the Shaman mid-range Jade stuff, which doesn't really care about your 2/6 all that much. It's using its weapons and then making 6/6s. But against those Reno matchups where you can pull a very crucial minion, it's a different story because suddenly it's not only about getting your combo together, it's also denying your opponent the ability to get his off, and that's where Dirty Rat is the best at. Combo breaking is a reality with that card.
Yeah, and this is obviously, we've said it a few times over the course of this match, it is a meta in this best of 11 format, with the aggressive decks generally getting banned out. Obviously this is a little bit different because of the way this format's done, so you do get to play some of those good decks, but even so you still want those anti-control cards in your lineup more than usual.
Yeah, it's so amazing to see Team Liquid come back after the initial problems they had.
Right.
They went 2-5 and now they're 5-5, coming back from what seemed like an unwinnable position with a deck that wasn't favored in any of its matchups, and suddenly they're looking well enough that they might just win the mirror match. They've got card draw, they've got the board at this point, even if it gets reset, they've got the health count, they've got everything.
Yeah, they've got some of their values being sucked out of Complexity. Well, the Complexity have done a good job not chucking value away in this game. Let's not beat about the bush. They've really held into a game that I think most teams would have lost already.
Yeah, they have been very conservative with the cards that
Okay,
right.
So now they need Emperor for a 20 damage combo.
Indeed they do. Indeed they do.
Can they do anything else?
I mean, there's a Dirty Rat Siphon Soul that's open to you if you really want to go that route. I mean, it's one of the ways you disrupt what your opponent wants to do, or you can pitch down a giant. But
8-8.
yeah, seems like a threat.
Little bit late, but it's 8-8 and it's here now.
And the thing is, usually it doesn't matter. Like, if you're playing the combo, it doesn't matter much how much health they've got left, as long as it's not 30. Right? So if the giant gets... It's like, the Reno matters insofar as the opponent's willing to Reno at a very comfortable, health total, right?
Yeah.
To make sure they're not getting comboed down. So it's not so much a matter of getting them down to, 10 and finishing them off. It's a matter of getting them down low enough that you can just hit them for 20 and win the game. So 20 is kind of the crucial health point. Second rate Bruiser, not what Complexity wanted to pull out of the hand.
No, not ideal at all. Although the Jiraxis is what they want to hit. Although Jiraxis, actually they probably want to hit the Faceless right there.
Faceless was arguably Faceless and Leroy. Leroy probably more so even. Definitely the minions they wanted to get in that spot. Very high threat levels on those two guys.
And yeah, because that would have allowed them to be able to play their own Jiraxis and just take control of the game. Not necessarily immediately, but sooner rather than later. Okay, so Liquid have managed to refill their hand slowly over the last 2 or 3 turns. But now they've got a board to deal with. It should be easy enough.
Yeah, it's one of the nuances of the matchup, which I think is an interesting one. The Dirty Rat potential that we don't see in every single deck. I feel like Reno Lock still runs it more so than Reno Mage, for instance. I've seen a lot more Dirty Rat because you want to make sure you can disrupt those combo decks, as the point of Reno Lock is to race to their combo in those matchups. You don't really want to be playing that deck against some of the more aggressive ones when you can't guarantee value. Now there's the Dark Peddler on Complexity's side that comes up. If that deck, if that card is able to pull off a second power overwhelming. Now suddenly Emperor is potentially representing 28 damage on the back of this full combo piece. So PO would be sick, but alas, not a sight.
No. These aren't the best cards you could wish for right now. Don't even know. Blood Imp can sometimes be a nuisance.
I wonder.
You've seen Demon Wrath, you've seen Hellfire, you've seen... The only AoE you haven't seen is Abyssal Enforcer. So frankly, I don't know. This is all quite weird, and Blood Imp is really the only card that's going to let you get out of Abyssal Enforcer range, if anything.
And that works.
If it doesn't. But it could have.
Yeah.
It could have. The Mortal Coil off the top helped solidify this Abyssal, but...
There's
a chance it wouldn't have.
Yeah. Gonna have to siphon at this point. Might have to nether.
I think you still have a little bit of time before nether. Thanks to Siphon Soul, especially. I think Siphon Soul is the reason you have a little bit more time. But again, you don't have a ton more time. You have just a little bit more. Oh, that's a play as well.
Drake into Faceless.
Yeah.
A couple of huge minions if wanted. Obviously, the 6/6 chomps through them pretty quickly. So it's just a case of whether you want to try and get a nether off before you do that. I mean, you want to, but can you? Can you find a way to make that happen?
I mean, getting 2 4/9s onto the board seems reasonable to me. The issue is if there's a Blast Crystal Potion, then he's tearing it apart and going through for 8. And then, without a Reno, he's just, 1 Leroy and PO away from killing you. Or a Soulfire, PO, and a minion with it. Like, it's very little damage needed. And you don't get 2 taunts with Shambler. You get only the 1. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so just go for that nether, which he's going to get... If they live, then they'll get to play 2 big minions onto an empty-looking board. A lot of the big stuff obviously went for Liquid early in the game with that Mountain Giant with their own Drake going pretty early on. And somehow Complexity have survived that and turned this into a Hearthstone game.
Yeah, Team Liquid here is considering what to do. I mean, Jiraxis does not seem like a valid option since, of course, you don't want to be putting yourself in any range where you can get killed. But since you haven't seen Emperor, like, how safe do you feel? I guess you're still missing Leroy to feel completely safe.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I don't know if 15 is even possible from this deck without the Emperor.
Exactly. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, there's the very safe Sylvanas Shambler play. You just saw Nether, so of course feels a little bit better.
Yeah, this is just being awkward. You might have to siphon Sylvanas here, but then you end up playing your... you don't end up playing anything.
You have to play the Drake, I believe, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that, and I was thinking, that's just really messy because he just gets stomped down by 5/5.
Well, at least
then you
it's
can't
1 for 1, right? In the best case scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just concerned if you go that route, what do you end up copying with your...
I guess my bigger concern is, what do you like? Would you tap, hope for Blast Crystal for next turn, and then just Siphon Soul now, then Blast Crystal, Drake, and get lucky with your follow-up Emperor? It's one of those.
Look at that deck size as well from your opponents. They're going to have everything soon enough.
They're getting as close to it as you are, except they have a lot more health to play with, and you're looking at 20 damage, not 28. So you're still pretty far off. They haven't even played their massive heals. You're in trouble.
You are actually in trouble. Yep, so go for this play. By elimination, really. There's just nothing else they can do that makes any sense, unfortunately, for them.
The name Farseer coming out. Again, not a combo card, but it is a card that will help the board lead stay in Liquid's position. Now, the Resurrection Potion, if that is one of them, is a liability with Doomsayer in the pool of Resurrectables.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things die, though, so... You might take
a lot of things did die, but the only way to lose this game is to pitch it with that potion, I think.
Sure.
One of the only ways you lose it, because it seems like it's very much in Liquid's pockets at this point, unless they horribly butcher one of the turns where they throw stuff away. This is AoE damage and summon a 5/5 demon, so it isn't a resurrection potion.
That's absolutely fine. That'll do good things for this particular turn. Yeah.
Does the job. More than the job. It's more than enough. And the Emperor with Shambler is probably what they were looking for.
Yeah. It's going to buy them more time. Can't see anything that works better. It's just, let's see if we can stay alive. Set up the combo for next turn. There's no chance that it ever actually gets this far, but as it stands right now, if it was their turn again, they'd get 30 damage through. But obviously the damage on the board will be tidied up.
And that is going to be the Leroy Faceless PO combo for 20. And the 3-3 will finish off the game. The Soulfire could have done it if there hadn't been another minion onto the board. And the game will come down to a combo, of course, in favor of Team Liquid with the absolutely insane reverse sweep. Sjow piloted that Warlock deck with his team from a 2-5 score all the way up to 6-5. And one of the craziest comebacks I think I've ever seen in last Sjow standing.
Yes! 3-0 down, facing down 4-0 with Druid against Pirate Warrior. Like you say, then they were 5-2 down. And 4-1 down as well. Hunter going 1-1, just winning that mirror match, doing its job. And Liquid have found a way through that crazy game tournament of Hearthstone. And they'll go to the semi-finals tomorrow where they take on either Luminosity or Tempo Storm. So it doesn't get a whole lot easier for them.
Yeah, Luminosity and Temple Storm will be the next match we've got. But before that, I believe we'll have a short interview with some of the winners that'll come join us on Discord to ask them what they thought. I mean, honestly, they must be really, really psyched about the way this went, because as soon as it came down to it, they're looking at really, really bad matchups one after the other with that Reno lock, and Sjow just won them all. Every single one of them. The Sylvanas play on Finja. Everything worked out, and that was a really honestly, like, this is one of the things that I love about last Sjow standing, and is the potential for those comebacks that I find that you don't see as much in Conquest, since you have to win once with every deck, and then if you're down, it's, you know, there's a big lead being given to the first winner in a last Sjow standing, but there's always a chance that that last deck just does disgusting things,
and it really did. And I think Sjow will see some irony in it as well, because he was destroyed earlier playing Reno Lock on stream, couldn't win a game of Hearthstone with it, and all the dumpster jokes are coming out. But now he's done it where it matters, put himself into the semi-finals along with his team. And a lot more important, this one. Yeah,
I mean, Complexity must be feeling a little bit disheartened at this point, because they were looking so happy at the beginning of the cast, right? They were winning, and they were just doing meme stuff, and they thought it was hilarious that their warrior would just steal games that they didn't even have to play. It seemed on their face that they were just laughing at the whole situation. And then the smirks fell off rather quickly as time passed, and the Warlock mirror match was excruciating. You could see as soon as the Twilight Drake dropped, what do we do? And then the Giant came down, and things just fell apart. They took a really interesting line of play with the potion, the resurrected minions, had an option there to maybe close the game early, but Team Liquid found a way to stabilize with the refreshment vendor. That was a really, really back and forth series, and it could have ended anytime, you know, no healing was found on either side. And it always just came down to the wire.
And we shouldn't be smirking either, because we thought that Liquid's strategy of like letting the 3 best decks get banned wasn't going to work out for them, but it definitely did. Although,
I wasn't really sure if there was maybe they just banked on Sjow winning all these matches. I can't imagine they were, but it's one of those moments
we don't
where you
need
look at this
Pirate Warrior.
Yeah, like we got Reno Lock. It's fine. Just let Sjow play Reno Lock. We're good, guys. Don't worry about winning.
Warrior. We don't need Rogue. We
just play Hunter.
We just play Hunter.
Hunter was actually one of their highest performing decks. You know, they won 1 with it, 4 with Warlock, 1 with Druid. So Sjow will be joining us in a second here, where I can ask him about their ban strategy, because honestly, I really want to know what the deck distribution.
Yeah, was it an oversight? Oh, Sjow can hear us now, apparently. So just have to wait and see if we can so we can hear him, and then we're good to go.
Yep. I mean, I can't even believe that Warlock did so much work. Like, Anyfin Paladin, and then the Reno Mage, and then the mirror match, and the Shaman. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just not really. That's the type of streak you need to get into top 10 legend. That's the type of streak that you need to be getting.
That was incredible, and again, just goes back to that game where Warrior finally got stopped, because that could easily have just been 6-0 at one point there. Just setting that up for you. Other interesting thing was that obviously they chose to play the Hunter Mirror, because that was like their best chance, basically.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Sjow, you're here with us?
I'm here. Hello.
All right. Hi. So first of all, congratulations for that amazing reverse sweep comeback. I don't even know, like that was crazy. Watching this. So I have a question for you before I let Lorinda take the word. The ban strategy. Um, why spread the three most powerful classes? Did you feel like your lineup was gonna do better if it were structured that way?
To be honest, I have to give all the credits to Neirea. He was the one that prepped the decks. I was just piloting, and we were discussing the play together. So the strategy is actually on Neirea's part. I believe he didn't calculate everything. So I think if we could do it again, we would probably not do it this way because leaving up patchy stakes is probably not the best idea. But yeah, it worked out. Like he predicted also, like Reno is gonna sweep for us. It can sweep as long as we beat Warrior, and it can actually sweep for us. So he predicted right. So hats off to Neirea.
Sick.
Nice work.
Questions?
No, I mean, there's one thing I want to say to Sjow anyway, which is I told you were going to play Hunter at some point today, and you just said you weren't. So
yeah, I didn't know I was on Hunter today. To be honest, like it's to be honest, just a team effort. Like we're talking through all our plays together. It's not just me winning here. Like it's the entire team, right?
How did you find the communication today? Obviously, you guys don't play together a huge amount. Did you get settled into that pretty well?
Yeah, like we got into it after playing Trinity Series that started recently, and after, like, I think our communication was not ideal the first week of that, but after the second one, we feel like we're pretty good with each other. I think we usually find the right place together, I think.
And do you guys manage to keep yourselves, like, you seem to be enjoying it even when you were losing to some degree? You seem to keep yourselves at least cheerful and thinking forward. Is that good?
Yeah, like it's different to play as a team for sure. I get more upset playing as an individual for sure because I know it's only on my part, right? And when you lose as a team, it's like it's the entire team that's losing. It's not only you, right?
Right.
So
it's like a learning experience.
Exactly, and when you win, it also feels better when you win because everyone is winning, and you can actually share the moment together instead of just solo, right?
That's beautiful. Now, last question before I let you go. Rest before your next matches tomorrow. I just wanted to ask about, going into the last, the last deck. You guys were down 2-5. That was it. Like, it looked like at least you were going to lose one of those matches. And I'm familiar with the decks your opponents were playing. And from my understanding, your Reno lock, even with combo, doesn't really have an edge in the matchups. If anything, it's like slightly favored for them, depending on how it's played. Did you feel favored going into it? Because I feel like the usual consensus on those matchups would have been against you.
So which matchups in particular? The Reno Mage and Paladin,
honestly,
maybe?
The Reno Mage, anything Paladin, anything Paladin, if the Finch had been able to snipe something, right, would have been a bit different.
So yeah, the anything, I don't have the most experience in it, but having the combo does increase the matchup for you. It's better to have the combo than don't have the combo because you can always threaten the lethal. And also, I think in that game, the combo was also hidden because they haven't seen the combo before that. So that also helps. And then against Mage, it was JJ that was playing, and we predicted the more minion-heavy Reno Mage, which is much easier as the Reno lock because there is not much burst to play around. If you can bait out like Firebolt, Frostbolt, you can just win by your axis because you don't have to fear the burn. Than like a Solia version with Pyroblast or Ice Lances. So I think the Reno lock was actually favored against both these decks.
Okay, by a slight margin because of the combo. It makes sense, because like traditionally the Inkmaster Pyroblast Roaring Torch kills you from Draxes, but in that case it didn't. So either way, congratulations, man. That was a really cool series to watch. We as soon as we got to the very end, we thought we'd just like call it in. We're like, all right, there's gonna be one of these matchups that goes bad, but you did it. So congrats to you and your team. It's a team effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Tomorrow we're gonna be facing off against one of the two next teams that we'll have coming up, which is Luminosity or Tempo Storm. We're gonna be playing the next match. Yep. All right, well, we'll be going to take a short break, guys, and then we'll be back for the next match of the day. Stay tuned for more Hearthstone action on Battle of the Best.